Howdy, folks. Is Vile Mike here, and LDG's here, but he said he'd be right back.
Hello, I was just on the phone. Hi, where am I? Where did what? Oh, that's right. I forgot. How you doing, Vile?
Oh, I'm just peachy. How about you?
Oh, sorry. Just I keep having the. I hate that. Damn it, YouTube! Can you please give me the option of muting a stream when I'm waiting for it to start? So when it just starts out of nowhere, it doesn't just make me. I'm like, what the hell? I'm sorry. What was the last thing you said?
I said I'm just peachy. How about you?
Good. Yes. Good. Now. Good now that I'm not echoing.
I didn't.
Lord.
Oh, you weren't echoing for me.
No. In my own, because the stream started 20 seconds after you actually started.
Oh, because you were on the.
I was on the YouTube. I'm giving you a view while I'm on here. Yeah, as every panelist should. Just because we have to, because YouTube sucks and we have to do it this way to get credit.
So, to continue the little conversation we were kind of having, I finally watched the first 3 episodes of Kenobi over the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And so far, I'm actually enjoying it. And as I was saying, anything that seems to be interfering with canon doesn't seem to be that big of a deal, as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. It's not like they killed off a major character and suddenly that character is supposed to be in episode 4. So yeah, everything seems okay.
Yeah. Everything's peachy keen.
And it seems to be well written, in my honest opinion, at least the first 3 episodes.
You know, I don't know what it is, but this actually exists. And you happen to be one of the people I'm talking about, where every single thing that I cannot stand to watch, that we watch for the first time, like when, for a new season comes out or something, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, this show's fucking horrible. And then you like it. You seem to like a lot of shows where I'm like, oh my God, dude, like, how do you not rip your fucking, like, you like Picard, for God's sakes. I don't know how you do that one. I don't know how you pull that off.
I liked Picard up until the last episode.
Whoa. Wait, season 1 or 2?
I haven't seen season 2 yet. So season 1, I enjoyed up until the last episode.
And what part of the last episode did you not like? Like what broke it for you?
Tentacle squid alien AIs coming through a portal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That literally they have a portal that opens up right in front of them, right? It's not like they had to travel anywhere. It just opens right in front of them, and they can't even keep the portal open. Like, what the fuck technology are you if you can't even keep a portal? Okay, so maybe I buy that someone has to open the portal to start, right? Maybe okay, I'll maybe buy that someone else has to initiate the portal for whatever reason. Okay, but once that portal's open, you're sitting here, Skynet, futuristic, Octa, Mecha, whatever. You can't keep the portal open yourself, really?
Well, let's talk about some of the stuff
in front of you.
I did like bringing back the Borg as not necessarily a threat, but as a curiosity, because that's how they originally should have been. And both
they definitely weren't a threat. They were not a threat at all. They were little puppy dogs.
Yeah, in that particular in Picard, they were exploring more about the Borg history, which without giving away how they were actually created. That much I approve. I did not approve of what they did to Ichab, only because he was a cool character. And he should have been explored more before they killed him off. I mean,
well, he was directly related to.
Well, he was basically the male equivalent of stuffing a woman into a fridge, if you know that trope.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the only reason why they got rid of him was because of personal reasons. That's just bullshit.
Yeah,
He got canceled.
yeah. It was a poor. It's a trope that I don't enjoy, and I think it's a poor excuse to get someone to be motivated over something. And in this case, it was 7. So that's why I didn't like that particular aspect. But I did like almost everything else. I thought it was very well written. I thought they brought back characters for good reasons. They didn't bring back everyone all at the same time, just as a giant fan wink for views, I thought. But I enjoyed Picard up until the last episode, because that was just so many bad tropes in a single episode that I couldn't enjoy it. But that's just me.
So just to be clear, you liked the rest of it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Like, what else didn't you like about it?
It was just nerdy stuff like Picard having to spell his name at Starfleet headquarters. That pissed me off. The fact that,
Why?
they
Hold on. Why did that piss you off?
That's like Bill Gates having to spell his name at a Microsoft convention.
Okay.
Sir, hi, Gates. Yeah, Bill Gates. How do you spell that? What?
Hold on. Picard isn't a tech billionaire that is known throughout the Federation. He's a Starfleet captain.
He is the Starfleet captain. You left out the most important word.
What in Star Trek history have you thought of that he's the captain?
At that particular time, he has already solidified his fandom. Everybody knew Picard. Everybody knows Picard, just like everybody knows frickin' Gene Roddenberry, just like everybody knows Captain Kirk. Everybody knows.
No. I can tell you right now that not everybody who even likes Star Trek knows who Gene Roddenberry is, because Mrs. Vile has been binge watching The Next Generation on her own, and she did not know who Gene Roddenberry was. She did not know who Michelle Barrett was. She just thought, she literally was like, dang, Troy's mom is really annoying. That's what a quote that she told me. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's actually Gene Roddenberry's wife. And she was like, really? I didn't know that.
Okay, so let's put this in a different aspect, right? The person who's in question works for Starfleet. It wasn't some random person that might not know about Picard. It was a Starfleet officer.
But why would a single rank and file Starfleet member know the name and how to spell a random retired captain?
Okay, and then after he spells his name, now here's the kicker, right? Here's the best part. After he spells his name, he literally changes tone and is like, "Oh, Admiral, yes, it's been a minute since you've been here." Like all of a sudden, like it just came to him
because the guy's record just showed up on his screen.
And
he's like,
okay,
"Oh,
you know what? All right, you're asking me the things I didn't like. I didn't like the fact he had to spell his name. Okay, does there have to be a true false Boolean on whether or not that that is proper or not? I just didn't like he had to spell his name. He's in Starfleet headquarters. Usually, the person who's looking up his information shouldn't even have to ask him his name. He should be automatically scanned, and the information has already popped up. Bullshit. I mean, this is automation, man. You're not going to ask for names.
Bullshit. Oh, come on.
You walk up to security. You're scanned.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
50 years
Hi, Elihu.
ago. No, I'm not yet.
How you doing?
50 years ago, if you were to go into, say, Savannah, Georgia, go to a park, and it's like, hey, who's Charles Lindbergh? I don't know. 50 years ago, Lindbergh's name was not in every single day farm fair. Everybody knows who Lindbergh was. He was a fraud. He's a phony guy, but everybody knows who the name was. 50, 60 years ago, not every person knew who Charles Lindbergh was. So why does Picard have to be so famous that everybody has to know his name? Not everybody's going to know the guy's name. And I just came in, I'm just hearing LDG's rant about Picard again.
I'm just tired of being in the future and still having to do things like it's 200 years ago. Okay. You have a comm badge on. That is literally your beacon.
Darren, there is a huge difference between, say, Chester Nimitz and Thomas More. So would you expect, even though they served at the same time, would you expect the guy at the front desk to know both of those people, or just one who's literally more famous and was more in the news?
You have a name. It doesn't mean you're actually going to recognize the face.
Even Picard was aggravated that he had to spell his name, for Pete's sakes. Even he knew that. I was like, oh, come on now, really?
All right, Darren, did you hear what I was saying?
Yeah. No, I was busy logging in. Go ahead.
I didn't see you were trying to get in on or get up on the panel when I was talking about this.
Oh, that's okay.
You said that if Chester Nimitz came to a U.S. Naval headquarters, they would guarantee the guy at the desk would know his name. Now, if Charles Moore came up to the desk, do you think they would know him?
It depends on whether or not he was that notable an officer. I mean, Picard, as captain of the Enterprise, saved Earth how many times?
He was a 4-star admiral at the same time as Charles Nimitz, or Chester Nimitz. I'm sorry.
Okay, I mean,
but even you know who Chester Nimitz is. I know who Chester Nimitz is. I'm sure even Elihu and LDG have some inkling of who Chester Nimitz is because of the Nimitz class aircraft carrier.
Right.
Okay, I did not know the guy's first name was Charles. That's the point.
No, Chester.
You need to.
Chester. Okay, that's the point. I do not know the guy's name is Charles.
The overall, you're dealing with minutia. You're dealing with minutia here. The idea being that Picard should have been a name that guy at the front desk recognized simply based on all of the volume of things that he did, including saving Earth from the Borg, or at least that kind of thing twice.
Well,
things of that
nature. He could have heard something along the lines of the Enterprise saved Earth from the Borg, and technically, I would argue that it was Data that saved the Earth from the Borg, not Picard.
Well, this. Probably the first time. I mean, you could make that argument certainly, but Picard was in command for most of that engagement. The second time, the stuff that happened during First Contact. I mean, Picard, it was that was a team effort, of course, but Picard was still in command the entire time. But again, it'll work both ways, but I tended to look at that as a little bit implausible that the guy working the front desk. I mean, it was guys like Picard that inspired people to join Starfleet.
The way I look at it, it would be like
thank you.
Picard is important to us, but in the grand scheme of things, for the Federation, as a whole, Picard is just one man. He's one captain. He's one admiral.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of captains and admirals in Starfleet, especially by the how often we see an admiral come on the show. There's probably 10,000 of them just on Earth.
Can I give you
20 years after Operation Desert Shield, if Norman Schwarzkopf came to Army headquarters, I think people would know how to spell his name and who he was. I just again.
Oh, come on! I couldn't spell Schwarzkopf, and I'm looking at his name right now.
Understood, but I mean, that part I was a little bit stretched for disbelief. I mean, when there seems to be this, I don't know, this trend now where these characters that are household names for the fans in their own universes, they're being forgotten, and it's almost to say, sorry fans. I mean, you really threw your fandom into this character that really wasn't all that big a deal anyway. And I think that's another reason why a lot of these newer revisitings of things like Star Wars and Star Trek and all that are not doing as well, as that they're doing things like that.
I want to give you guys. I want to give you guys an example for a second.
Sure.
Okay. You guys heard of? You walking up to a place. You're supposed to be the famous person, and nobody recognizes you. You have a problem with that, right? 30 years ago, let's not get, no, I'm going to say 30 years ago. I'm going to say 10 years ago, if the guy was still alive. An old man walks up, it's like, hi, I can see this person. Who the hell are you? My name is John Glenn. Glenn, that name sounds familiar. Let me look you up. Wait, you don't know who John Glenn is? That's a fucking example. The guy's been out of service. He hasn't been doing jack shit. His name is not in recognition of the.
Well, he was a politician afterwards.
His name is not. I'm talking about Picard. His name is not in passing tongue like everybody else. John Glenn, yes, he was a politician. His name was in passing tongue. You out of the perspective of the people's public eye. You don't know who the fuck this guy is.
Yeah, and remember,
I accept that woman. In fact, like, okay, yeah. No, if I was gonna go, if I was working at NASA and I see John Glenn come in, I wouldn't recognize the guy. Oh, your name? Are you really him? Oh, okay. Yeah, the guy's been out of public service. He's been out of the public tongue. Nobody's gonna really remember who the fuck this guy is.
Again, I think that if you saved Earth, involved in saving the Earth more than once, you're going to be known. And I thought it was rather implausible that the guy working the front desk at Starfleet headquarters,
exactly,
didn't recognize the name Picard when there was a hologram of his ship above him. You know, it was just to me that was implausible. If you wanted to say that it was his first day, or that maybe he got hit on the head or something as a baby, I don't know. But it's it just seemed a little bit too implausible for me.
It's the way they did the scene. It's the totality of the scene is what I was trying to say. The fact that he didn't know the name, the fact that he sounded like he knew him as soon as the fact that he had to spell his name in the first place when you have like computers, like, you don't even need to spell there's no need to spell the name in the 24th century.
Okay, but
no spell check sucks today, but they got it down.
But you understand why it was written the way it was. It was written to show how far Picard had fallen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's why they added the part that Picard looked upset that he didn't know. And I thought that was ill taste.
I thought it was
mad ill taste.
Of the story. That's why it was good.
Then if he really didn't know who he was, if he really fell, then you should have finished the scene with the guy not still talking like he knew him, buddy. Oh, yeah, welcome back. It's been a while, blah, blah, blah. Like if you really didn't know him. I don't know. I just didn't like the totality of the scene. I thought it was, because it's just not believable. It doesn't suspend my disbelief, man.
That's called pandering.
You got the Enterprise hanging over the guy's effing head. You are Picard. You saved the Earth multiple times. You've been
hold on.
You've been far. He has been the farthest ever captain. Nobody, even Voyager, hasn't traveled as far as the Enterprise has with under Picard.
Darren and LDG have brought up the fact that he saved Earth multiple times. Let's put it this way: we've only seen a fraction amount of the action that happens within the Federation at any given time because we're limited to one series or two series and a couple of crews or ships, whatever. We know that Earth has been attacked twice in a short period of time by alien space probes, essentially. Star Trek 1 and Star Trek 4.
What about the Xindi who cut Florida in half? Who's Archer?
It is entirely possible that
okay, you know what? All right.
Every freaking week.
No one would expect Archer to walk into Starfleet headquarters in Picard's era. I mean, he's but he is a contemporary still, and I can understand your point of view as well. But to me, it seemed implausible and a little bit forced.
Yes, it was exactly. Thank you.
I don't find it implausible, but I do find it maybe disrespectful to the character. But it was within the narrative of the story, which is why I accept it. So if they did it for a cheap joke and a cheap joke solely, I probably would be on your side.
So but hang on, you guys say that this Starfleet captain returned to an admiral who helped save Earth, who helped made a peace treaty with the Borg. Nobody knows who this fucking Janeway person is on Prodigy. Nobody knows who Grant Janeway is. So I guess nobody knows who Picard is.
That seems to be an endemic flaw of Secret Hideout Productions. They want to have the tales that we all loved and grew up watching forgotten by the current generation. Have to relearn it, and that again is that trope that we keep seeing. The idea that there's people in the Star Wars universe that don't in the time of Rey that don't believe the stories about the Jedi and and sword fighting and all that kind of stuff. And we've got in Star Trek, productions created by Secret Hideout. Well, hold on. Now,
sorry,
we've got this thing where the episodes we loved and remember are seemingly forgotten by a lot of the people that these characters now have to interact with in their own narrative. It can be kind of off-putting. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I would say that the main problem with when it comes to Star Wars in that respect is literally the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, because it kind of establishes the idea, not in practice but in principle, that the Jedi have been gone for a long time, whereas it ended up being they were gone for like 10 years.
A New Hope is not the first Star Wars. A New Hope is the remake of the first Star Wars.
What are you talking about?
The original Star Wars did not have New Hope. It was Star Wars.
Yeah. I know. I'm trying to differentiate it from the rest of by calling it by its subtitle, okay? Don't nitpick that, at least, Elihu.
It's just a name change or a name alteration is all it was.
Yeah, but it was the adding of the subtitle to it. That's all.
It's kind of like, this trope. It's almost becoming a trope now, where you have, for example, in Ghostbusters Afterlife, the kids didn't know who the Ghostbusters were. And again, maybe that's plausible, but that their Paul Rudd character knew who they were and recognized their ghost traps immediately, and so it's a way, of course, to tell the audience who they were, who may not know who they were, but you only need one person who doesn't know those things to have it explained to them or something. I mean, but this idea that everybody has forgotten, or so few people remember all these great adventures and things. It's a decision that I don't agree that I'm getting a little bit.
Well, I can give you an example of something. One of my 12-year-old daughter's friends was hanging around with us when I was with them, and I was talking about Shatner going to space. And they didn't know who William Shatner was. So I showed them a picture. And literally, she goes, "Who cares if some lawyer from one of my mom's favorite shows went to space?"
Okay, well, I think an actor is a little bit different than an actual historical figure, which is what Picard would have been.
I would say that William Shatner and his impact across media and everything else includes not just being an actor; it's everything he's done.
Right.
But
again, he's not Captain Kirk. So I mean, that's not a very good analogy. Like, for example, let's say Picard goes to Starfleet headquarters and says, "I loved you in X-Men." Well, that's a continuity breaker. That's kind of what you're talking about here. But again, there's people who don't who lose track of certain figures in history. Of course, I mean, does anybody remember who Bernard Goetz was?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, well, he was called the subway vigilante in New York City in the 80s because he executed some people who were trying to mug him on a subway, and his name for a good chunk of the 80s was known. If you said Bernard Goetz, you know who he was. Dominic de Villepin. A lot of people don't remember who he was either, but he was in the news all the time for the first half of first part of the War on Terror, because he was a French, I believe, ambassador who didn't agree with the United States invading Iraq. There's all these names that come and go. That's true. But again, I don't think that you portray the Picard and his crew as these legendary figures, and that's what Worf considered them to be. When he's talking to O'Brien on Deep Space Nine, he's like, we were like the legendary figures of old. It didn't seem like we could be stopped by anybody. We couldn't lose, and now people are forgetting who they were. And you can see, and again, I'm of two minds when it comes to that. Sure, that happens, but it seemed very implausible to me.
We, as people who grew up with TNG, are looking at it and are like, how could they forget these people? Because we love them so much. Well, maybe they weren't loved by everybody. within the context of the universe.
Again, you're talking about you and I'm talking about the characters within the narrative.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying for us it's important, but for the people within the narrative, they're not necessarily that important.
Picard saved not only from the Borg at least twice, but also saved Earth from Shinzon. He saved Earth from the situation in Time Zero. He saved humanity in the final episode of TNG. Now, there's not a lot of evidence that your rank and file Starfleet officer would be aware of that, but there's a lot of things that he did in his career, and it didn't seem plausible that this kind of rock star would have to spell out his name for somebody. Then again, you could also make the argument that there are so many people in Starfleet and so many names, both human and alien, that maybe the guy, it didn't click for him right away either. You could make that argument, but it was a choice of having the scene go the way it is that I kind of disagree with more than just the continuity problem. But again, it was a minor thing. It kind of annoyed me, but it wasn't the major sin of that show as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, this is just the first thing I mentioned, Darren, when Vile actually. I can't believe we're still talking about it. Would you like to move on to the 100 other things I have wrong with Picard? Or do you still want to talk about this one fucking scene? Sorry.
Well, how about this, Darren? What was something else that irked you about the series? At least about Picard. I think we've all watched that one at least for season 1.
The bleakness. I mean, it almost okay. So Earth is according to the Berman era supposed to be this utopian society, right? Every time we see Earth, it's park-like, and there's no, there doesn't seem to be any societal problems. But there was just something the way they presented Earth in Picard that seemed almost dystopian, especially with the situation on Mars. It didn't feel like the Berman era world. And you could argue that it's been X number of years since we saw the glimpses of Earth through on TNG, Deep Space Nine, and whatnot. But I don't think it would change that dramatically. It just didn't seem like they were wanting to adhere to that. And
See, I'm kind of like Lore Reloaded on this. I agree with him because I think that the amount of things that did happen in a short period of time, 2 Borg attacks on Earth, the Dominion War, the destruction of Romulus, the attack by Shinzon, that kind of stuff. All that stuff happened within 2 decades. Right. I could see that the leading military organization, which has obviously since the time of the first episode of Next Generation to the end of Deep Space Nine, has heavily militarized that organization. Yeah. I mean, before the whole line about Riker saying, combat is a small part of a captain's,
right.
whatever.
Yes. Yeah. TNG represents the last few years of a period when Starfleet in particular was fat, dumb, and happy. I understand that, but we're talking about the civilian lives on Earth. That's what I was commenting on, was not Starfleet, but the civilian stuff. It just seemed like that was presented in a very bleak way, unlike how it was presented, before under the Berman era. That's what I was suggesting.
We got very little of civilian life in the Federation.
We did, but what we did see was very different than what we saw in Picard. There were other things too. This idea that these Romulan agents could get into a firefight on the roof of Starfleet headquarters, and no security shows up. That
part they probably could have. I would agree that part they could have explained better as in how they were able to accomplish that. Considering they went into
Yeah, he wakes up in his chateau. It's like, why isn't he in a facility somewhere being, softly interrogated? I mean, it's or debriefed at the very least. I had a lot of problems with that show. Just not just it being a Star Trek show, but just being a show in general. It had a lot of problems.
You mean when she told Picard that her boyfriend was killed and he didn't do jack shit about it, didn't notify anybody? He just went to bed.
Who was killed?
When her boyfriend was killed in the apartment, she went to tell Picard that her boyfriend was killed, and he just didn't do anything. He just went to bed.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there. I mean, it just didn't feel.
To me, that was more of like present day kind of stuff. When you tell someone that someone's been murdered and the cops are dragging their feet because they got other things, that they're worried about.
Well, then you got to tell us that. You got to tell us she already went to the cops and that dragging their
feet. They
But
probably should have explained that better. But
it was the problem wasn't. Again, the problem wasn't just that it was what I felt was a substandard Star Trek show. It was a substandard show in general.
I kind of want to disagree with you on that, but I don't have any examples to prove otherwise. Off the top of my head, I haven't seen the show in almost a year. Mm-hmm. But as I said, I still enjoyed it up until the last episode, and that's because I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'm heavily into the tropes when it comes to how TV and media is presented to us. And when they use a trope effectively, I'm like, oh, great, they did that great. I enjoy it. But when they do it so shittily is when I hate it. And that's what I'm talking about with the giant space tentacles. I'm like, that's like 12 tropes all at once that are very commonplace nowadays. They could have done anything differently, but they didn't. And that's what made me upset about it. But that's why, as I said, I enjoyed it up until the last episode. Plus, the whole kill. One thing I gave him mad props for was the whole killing off of Data's daughter in that first episode. Because I would have imagined that a lot of people were like, "Oh, they're not going to kill. They killed off Data, but they're not going to kill off his daughter." Holy shit, they killed off his daughter. That was a good use of the putting someone into a fridge to motivate a character. Whereas the one what they did with Icheb was a bad example of that same trope.
Yeah. There were a lot of little. I was also very frustrated with some of these references. They go to that planet and there's a bar called Quarks, but it's not quite spelled. It's Quark Bar. You have a woman in the bar that looks an awful lot like one of Quark's Dabu girls, and things like that that they throw out little references and little suggestions and things.
I can easily see Quark franchising his name out to play off of his new status as being an ambassador / bar owner. And then creating a franchise of Ferengi embassy / bars across every planet he can.
Well, his brother is, last we heard, the Grand Nagus. So I mean, obviously he's going to take some advantage of that. I mean, but I mean, they don't explain enough. It's like they throw out a hint here and a hint there, and sometimes the hints are they're not accurate either. It's like, for example, it wasn't called Quark's Bar; it was just called the Quark Bar, and we don't know if that's a reference to quark or not, because quark is also a scientific term for something. True. They did it. They're kind of half-assed in how they do these references, and it's like they're so non-committal about it, and they're purposely trying to seed some speculation, and it just comes off as weak to me. It really does.
Maybe it's because I enjoyed movies like The Fifth Element or Interstellar, where they do things, but they don't necessarily explain it, and it's just a bit of world building. And I enjoy that kind of stuff. Like, have you seen The Fifth Element?
Yes, I have.
Darren? Okay.
Yes, I have.
You remember in the airport scene where they had the garbage piled up?
Right.
And they use the garbage, and they talk about it, but they don't explain why it's there.
Right.
but it's part of the universe, and it kind of gives a little bit of, you know, world building of, well, maybe things aren't so great.
At the time that movie was being made, it was a huge news story about the garbage that was in some foreign airports, particularly in Italy and I believe France as well, because there was a strike. And it was, again, you know, it was the 90s. You had this as a huge news story. So that was a reference to what was going on at the time that movie came out. That's why.
But they didn't explain it. They didn't explain it in the film. Mm-hmm. They just had it there.
Right.
And
right.
I didn't know about that whole airport garbage thing until you just brought it up to me.
Yeah.
When it was explained, when I was reading the behind the scenes, they literally did it because they needed to hide the fact that they didn't have access to a full set.
Yeah, it worked. I mean, you know, but the movie Fifth Element was heavily inspired by material that was covered in the comic magazine Heavy Metal as well, and that was, you know, just part of that whole idea. I mean, why would garbage pile up? It's because you can't, you know, the people who are supposed to pick it up aren't doing it. That's generally why. And it was a wink and a nod to the audience. And you're right. Maybe somebody watching it today wouldn't pick up on that, but
I did not at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't at the time, and I didn't know about it until you just brought it up. So I learned something new.
Yeah,
but I'm just saying, within the context of the universe, do they explain why, you know, it's there? Do they explain why Manhattan is so much larger? No. Mm-hmm. I had to find out from the again, the behind the scenes stuff. When they actually show Manhattan, the island is much larger than it was before. That's because, according to the director, they were saying that, in the future, they've exported so much salt water off the planet that sea levels have gone down. But it's not something that is explained in the movie. You just have a larger Manhattan Island.
Yeah, look at Waterworld. There was no explanation of what happened to all the land.
You could, I mean, you could just as easily dismiss it as it's the future. You know, there's certain things I think that audiences will accept on face value, and others they won't. You know, but you know, again.
And I think that's what comes down to it for a lot of us is some of us, like me, are willing to accept it at face value just for a bit of world building, and other people are going to nitpick. And the stuff I nitpick is not going to be the stuff that you nitpick, but the stuff that I nitpick may not be enough to actually make me angry, whereas the stuff that you nitpick might be enough to make you angry. Yeah. As I said, the reason I hated the last episode was because of how many poorly used tropes they used. That angered me, but apparently that doesn't seem to anger anyone else on the panel.
I didn't care. I was entertained. I didn't care.
So basically, I started off saying I watched 3 episodes of Kenobi, and we spend half an hour talking about Star Trek Picard. So LDG hasn't. Has anyone else started watching Kenobi at least?
I finished it.
Well, no spoilers for the last 3 episodes. I haven't seen those yet.
Oh man, I can't tell you that Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan. Shit. Wait, that's 10 years from now. Never mind.
See, now if they had killed it like literally, if Obi-Wan is killed by Darth Vader in this show, I would probably have been really upset because that would have been something that would have broken canon entirely. A few cracks I can understand because those can be patched up with ancillary media, and that's what Star Wars has done since it was created. I mean, hell, the first freaking novel, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, patched some stuff from the first movie.
I'm waiting for them to make a Porkins movie.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did, and then made his death more heroic.
Yeah, Porkins, a Star Wars story or something like that, or
I know
Wedge Antilles was a character that was in almost every space battle we ever saw. It's from first Star Wars film up through Return of the Jedi, you know, having a movie about him might actually be interesting, you know.
But yeah, I could easily see, especially like Wedge Antilles having his own movie, because again, for a short time, there was a type of trope that was named after him called the Wedge type character, where it's a minor character that appears in all sections of a certain media that somehow survives despite the fact that he's not a main character.
Right. Yeah, an anti-red shirt, sort of.
Basically, yeah, that's basically what the trope was an anti-red shirt.
Yeah, for the longest time, that's what that you could have called Felix Leiter that in the Bond films until he got messed up. But yeah.
But he wasn't in every James Bond movie. He was in like what?
He wasn't. You're right. He was in a
6
lot of them, but he
or
wasn't in
7
films, and
even then he wasn't even played by the same guy in most of them.
Almost all. I mean, yeah, and in most examples, he was played by a different actor every time, and they had a totally different look. And yeah, let's see here, Felix Leiter. How many actors have played him?
Well, I can look it up, but I'm going to pull a number out of my ass and say he was in 7 films
8.
played by 6 different actors.
Yeah, eight different actors so far.
Oh wow!
Jack Lord, Sek Linder, Rick Van Nutter. You know, up through Jeff Wright. Yeah. Now he was played twice by David Hedison, so that there's an example of somebody who got to play him more than once. But I remember the one of my favorite Bond movies is The Living Daylights, and the guy that they got to play him in that movie was basically looked like almost like a nerdy Don Johnson. He lived on a boat like Crockett and Tubbs. You know, it was an interesting way of depicting him. But yeah. Now, Wedge Antilles. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
For the Wedge type character for Star Trek, I would almost want to say Lieutenant Leslie from the original series, but even they killed him once and then brought him back without no explanation.
Yeah. we were watching some Star Trek episodes yesterday, and there was a Romulan captain, a female, and played by Carolyn Seymour. Yeah, it was in the episode Contagion. It was second season episode, and what was interesting was she came back later and played a different Romulan captain. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you just make her the same captain? That would have been, cool. You'd have a little bit of continuity there, but they didn't do that. So if she was, Carolyn Seymour played Romulan captain in Contagion, and then later on there was an episode where Troy surgically altered to look like a Romulan and was placed on a warbird, and she was the captain of that ship, and
Armin Shimerman played more than one Ferengi. Nobody complains about that.
Oh yeah. He played a box too at one point.
He was the first Ferengi in the episode of TNG.
Yep. Yes, he was. He was also a Ferengi in Peak Performance, one of my favorite episodes, and of TNG, and he'd done a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It kind of skews like some of the stuff like in our memories a little bit when they actually have a character come back in Star Trek and reprise the same role. Because when I did my nerdy question on Tomalak, everyone got the question wrong because they thought he was in so many episodes, but it turns out he was technically only in 3 episodes in 7 years.
Yeah.
4 if you include a hologram projection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wanted him to be in more of them, but he was
5 years.
Yeah, they wanted Tomalak to be in more episodes as a recurring one, and they just couldn't schedule him. That's one of the reasons also why we had the 3 main Klingon captains in TOS. Those were intended to be the same captain that Kirk encountered each time, but they couldn't get the same actor each time, so they became different characters, Kang, Koloth, and Kor. But that turned out to be a later, Deep Space Nine kind of turned that into a blessing by having those characters come back and be contemporaries to Dax and things like that. So it was fun.
Yeah, that was a good example of doing something, limitations of the previous generation to expand a storyline in the future. And they included even Sulu as a captain.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the novelization of that storyline, Sulu was also one of the Blood Brothers, essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, yeah.
So
the Voyager episode flashback had a nice confrontation between. Now we don't know. We assume that Tuvok's memory is accurate of events because he's a Vulcan and why not? But they had that moment where Sulu had a bit of a sparring match with Kang, I believe it was, and the Excelsior ignited a nebula around his Katinga and slowed him down. It was a fun little moment of continuity.
Yeah, sorry, we've been kind of ignoring the chat. Sorry about that, guys. Not trying to be mean, I swear.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting I can look at the chat.
So here's one for you. How did you like the my mind to your mind Android bullshit?
What do you mean?
In Picard, the synth did a Vulcan mind meld.
Well, did they really do a full mind meld, or are they just now so human that they are so biological in their construction that they can actually do something like that?
I don't know.
There were a lot of things about what they changed about the androids. I mean, first of all, they called them they call them synths. I can't remember.
Yeah, synths
instead of androids. And the idea that you could reconstitute an android from one positron or something.
They couldn't actually do that. They just were able to copy the matrices from a single atom or something like that.
Yeah, something of that nature. That to me was a bridge too far, but
they brought data back from a single molecule, from a single.
It was all babble, so it doesn't. Yeah. To me, it doesn't really matter. Because Star Trek always does that kind of stuff. Just add a couple of quantums or harmonics, and it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, but Star Trek used to be smart, and it's not anymore, and that's another thing we've kind of lost here as well.
Yeah, but that kind of stuff had its origination in TOS and was brought to its extreme in Voyager.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna penalize Picard for the mistakes of its previous generations.
Well, I've never been a huge proponent of Voyager either. Voyager was the weakest show in my opinion until more recent.
My ringtone is Voyager. My phone.
I would
say there aren't things about Voyager that I like. There are some things about Voyager that I like. I mean, I thought the idea of them relying on an EMH was really a great idea. And
what made evolving over time.
What made the EMH interesting to me was all the times when it actually would have been better if they'd had a biological doctor instead of a hologram. Because to me, what made the doctor interesting were his limitations more so than his abilities. But that was a neat idea, and the idea of having two characters on the ship eventually that had to struggle with emotions from time to time. Usually the formula is you have one, right? Like Spock or Data, and then you have or T'Pol, and then you have. But on Voyager, you ended up with two by the end. You had Tuvok, who occasionally had emotional issues, and then you also had 7 of 9, who was also trying to regain her emotions and things. Yeah. So they had a double whammy there on that trope. But
Enterprise also had Barclay.
Well, Barclay didn't have a problem necessarily with whether or not he could experience emotions. He just had problems with dealing with people and having anxiety. And,
it was still emotional. It was still emotional anxiety.
You could say that he wasn't a regular character though. He wasn't a regular cast member. Data was the character that was in search of emotions on the main cast. But I mean, Barclay was interesting too. I mean, I liked how he had. He had different phobias and things. I mean, once he got one taken care of, another one would come up, like his transporter problem and things like that.
That's the same as McCoy. He had transporter psychosis. He was afraid of the transporter.
Barclay was a good character because of how they utilized him as a way of showing that you can have issues, still be in Starfleet, and still be the hero.
Yeah, McCoy, though, he didn't like using the transporter, but he still used it. And Barclay had a much more acute problem with it than, you know. I mean, I got the impression that McCoy was just manning up every time, and he didn't let it bother him. Dr. Pulaski had a problem with transporters too that was a little bit more pronounced than McCoy's. I mean, a lot of people don't watch the episode, but it's called Shades of Grey. It's the clip show, the final episode of the second season, where in the beginning she gets on a transporter and she's whinging, and Chief O'Brien takes the opportunity to take a jab at her, and she jabs him right back, and you know he realizes he shouldn't do that. So but it's a fun little moment. But you know, transporter psychosis or whatever you want to call it. I mean, almost the entire crew of the NX-01 had a problem with their transporter. You know, they were like,
but that's like the people. I would equate that with people that don't like the idea of 5G. They think it's going to do something, but because it hasn't been vetted well enough, even though the experts are saying, "Oh yeah, it's fine for people now. Trust us. We're the scientists." And then they're like, "Yeah, well, I still don't really trust it."
Yeah, like 4G. Oh no, it's 5G. No, I don't trust that one either.
And honestly, I liked that. I like the idea of these science fiction people, you know, being afraid of a new technology. The idea that is still going to happen, you know, potentially in the future. And you know, the episode the episode that I keep remembering is the one called Vanishing. I think it was called Vanishing Point, where Tucker and Hoshi are on the planet and a storm's coming. It's a special kind of storm that they can't really get protection from, so they have to be beamed back up to the ship, and they're looking for any excuse at all for the Enterprise to not have to beam them up. You know, because they're like, well, we can hide in the caves. No, you can't hide in the caves. Well, we can hide in the shuttle pod. No, it'll you're not safe in there. You know, you have, you know, and they're trying to like calm each other by saying, you know, well, the captain did it a couple times and Reed's done it 3 times. You know, they seem to be okay. You know? I thought that was some good stuff. But
that type of stuff makes sense.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll use the fear of the transporter to relate to another series I've been watching. I've been watching Station 19. It came up on my, you know, when I was watching something else and that show ended, it brought the first episode of this, and I started watching it. And I'm fairly enjoying it, but I do have issues with it. But in the first season, one of the firefighters is in a situation where she actually develops a fear of fire. So being a firefighter and developing a fear of fire is something that kind of makes it hard for you to function, but they tried to make it so that she could still do stuff while she got over her fear and that kind of stuff. And I would translate that to Star Trek being, you're going to have to use the fucking transporters. Sorry, this is Starfleet. So
even in Firefly, I mean, the Doctor had a problem with just being in outer space. He didn't like the idea of putting on a spacesuit. And you know, they play a pretty mean prank on it at one point, but yeah, the phobia is like that. Yeah, it's like being a hydrophobic diver. You know, it doesn't work. You know, in reality, if you were a firefighter and you ended up being pyrophobic, you'd probably need to change careers. I mean, they would recommend that because you could endanger the rest of your firefighting team. You know, if you had that kind of a problem. But on shows, they have to work out the problem. You know, and because the cast members can't, have to stay there, you know, the next week or whatever. But yeah.
Well, I also think that we should be helping people work out on their problems like that, but that's just me.
That is true. I mean, that is that's one of the reasons why we like Barclay, because Picard decided, you know, no, it's too easy to pass this problem child onto another ship. Let's see if we can resolve his issue. And you know, Riker was kind of the jerk in that episode, and I kind of appreciated that a bit. But no, Barclay was an interesting character because he was not a typical Starfleet Gene Roddenberry Superman. You know what I mean? He was a lot more like his audience, and you know, a lot of us would dream of, if I was in Starfleet, I'd be like, you know, Riker or Kirk or whatever. But a lot of us would probably end up a lot more like Barkley. So we don't want to admit it, but that's.
I'll be honest with you. And Averick said that didn't Worf hate being in space too? And I don't know how often they brought that up, other than First Contact.
He didn't like being in 0G. I know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because when Picard says, "Hey, do you remember your 0G trainings?" I remember it made me sick to my stomach, and then he kind of whinges and says, "What are you suggesting?" And I don't know that it was the suit. I think it was just the fact that he liked gravity. So.
Now, what you said about Barkley being atypical for a Starfleet officer, it kind of reminds me of Tendi from Lower Decks. Because
I don't watch Lower Decks, but yeah,
well,
that's fine.
If you just watch the first episode, because she, I think, represents what a lot of people think that they would have been in. If we were in Star Trek, what would our character be? And it was the scene where she actually sees the ship at warp for the first time, and she's just in awe.
Yeah.
And to me, that is what a lot of people were like, what I would imagine me being, seeing that from space for the first time. Yeah, I would be in awe too. Yeah. And it was I know she's not a human character in the show, but it was a very human reaction. And I could see myself in her shoes at that moment. Yeah. Including the end of the thing where she's like, I got the whole of heart. I mean, her being excited about everything as well, even if it was a dangerous situation, she was looking at the benefits or the good parts about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. I remember how we kind of ended up talking about Barkley, but it's the kind of conversation kind of meandered a bit. But yeah, getting back to Picard and what we did or did not like about it. I have this idea that I think a lot of Star Trek, especially the stuff that they're making now that takes place in eras we've seen in live action, that they should be embracing what's called retrofuturism. An example of this is, in Kirk's era, in the Desilu era of Star Trek, they had recording devices that they called tapes. They probably weren't tapes. They were probably just little blocks of wood that were painted blue and red. But
yeah,
they called them tapes. And so in my mind, if you're going to go back to, that era or something very, very, very close to that era, like Pike's era would be, you should have something like that. In there, and no holographic interfaces and things, because we didn't see them. But
that whole aesthetic of Discovery for that first 2 seasons is one of the things that my nitpickiness was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah,
hey,
and you know what?
Holographic controls for the bridge. Okay,
and I would have been fine if they would have just said, "Look, this is our take on Star Trek." Kind of like how J.J. Abrams said, this is, and he even cemented it by saying it's in an alternate reality, and even saying that at some point in the movie. Although I have a differing opinion as to when it actually diverges. But anyway, if they would have said this is our take on Star Trek, I would have been fine with that, because then I'm like, okay, you're not, But they didn't do that. They said this is canon, and they said it was canon, and they didn't bother putting it in continuity. And
yeah,
I think that when they're looking at the Star Trek fandom, they decided to sort of make every other Star Trek production that came before sort of a vague history on their show. I tend to think that they didn't understand the average Star Trek fan, because the average Star Trek fan is very detail oriented. That's a euphemism, by the way. Very detail oriented on things, and if you just have, we're gonna revisit those years, but we're only gonna hit the high points. We're not gonna be worried about having every piece of technology be right, and having our D7s look like something other than a D7, things of that nature. And our Klingons are going to look and sound very different, and things. I think that was a mistake. If you weren't, go ahead.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
Since you're basically admitted about being Roddenberry Star Trek, what did you think about Sybok?
I'm sorry, what? Could you
okay. Yeah, let me actually clarify the question. your description here is talking about you're backing up all of Roddenberry Star Trek, Roddenberry canon, this and this and that. What do you think about Cybox since Roddenberry says he's not canon?
I didn't care for it. I mean, I again, that's the same kind of misstep that the Michael Burnham character was. I mean, we already saw how the fans reacted to the insertion of Cybok and how basically nobody references, I mean, up until recently, nobody references Star Trek V in the films or in the TV shows, and all of a sudden, well, they did it once, that means we can do it. No, the fans didn't like that. They didn't again, a lot of the stuff that the choices that they make, they don't seem to take the fan reaction into consideration as well. And inserting a long lost family member of Spock's, into a show was a demonstrated failure. Yet they decide, well, we can do it better somehow, or it almost makes me think that they did it just to tick off the fan base. I mean, I don't want to assign motive, but it often feels that way to me.
See, I don't have a problem with her being Spock's adopted sister. I probably have the same problem you have about it. Is it was not done very well.
And this is the sad thing about Secret Hideout's productions. I mean, those actors are probably very good at what they do. And some of the production people have put in a lot of hard work, and I appreciate a lot of that stuff. It's just the problem is that the shows are built on a foundation that I don't agree with, and so everything that's built on that foundation has this kind of a problem. I'm not, Sonequa Martin Green, I would love to see her in some more stuff. I would love to see her play like Storm in the Marvel MCU X-Men films when they finally start making those, or something of that nature. Or, Anson Mount, for example, charismatic actor, his Pike is very affable. And I wouldn't mind seeing him, play back Black Bolt yet again. Hopefully in a story where he doesn't die. And there's other actors. The actor who plays Spock, even, I think he's got a cool voice and everything. I just don't like him as Spock. But
yeah, anyway, to go back a little bit. One of the things I've said is if they had done the same thing with the JJ verse and just said that Discovery was an offshoot timeline or another universe, I would have enjoyed it so much more. I could every nitpick that I had about the aesthetic or the set design or anything like that, we could go, oh, it's just a different timeline. It's fine. I can actually sit down and enjoy it.
Especially now that Marvel has been pushing the whole multiverse concept, where the fans can have their cake and eat it too.
That's my issue with it, is because they've had some opportunity.
But not in an ongoing dramatic sense. They've visited alternate timelines, in one or two episodes and whatnot. But but now that we've got this, the MCU pushing forth this idea and making it mainstream. I mean, let's face it, multiversal ideas like that. There was a show, I believe, called Sliders that was based on that, but they went to a different one every week, as I recall. But having, but
Sliders was great until, they ruined it by trying to say, oh, we need to make it more actiony. It's like, no, let's explore these different worlds. But no, we got to introduce an overarching villain that can also travel through different. Yeah.
Right.
But do you ever read Marvel's Exiles?
No, I have not.
It was literally a group of Marvel superheroes from different, universes, different things like that, and they would travel to other universes to, save or kill or whatever. I mean, it was.
There was a series like that called Avengers Forever, written by Kurt Busiek and illustrated by George Perez. That was basically a team of Avengers made up of different alternate reality versions of them. And they had to go on a reality hopping, set of adventures. I mean, that's been there for a long time, and but DC has had that. I mean, actually, DC I think was the first the first of the big two that really embraced a multiversal idea, and then they in the 80s they compressed everything into one reality, and then 20 years later they brought back their multiverse, and so I mean in this I mean it almost seems
within
like
the realm of sci-fi, it's entirely possible.
Yeah, Secret Hideout could have been on the cutting edge of the whole multiverse trend by just saying that this is our take on Star Trek and it's going to be different. And instead of, it almost felt like a bait and switch. I mean, it almost felt like they were trying to get longtime fans to tune in because they were going to be showing them a familiar world. And then they said, well, when they're going to realize that it's not authentic Star Trek, but they'll be so impressed by what we do that they won't care. Well, that didn't happen because they weren't as good at their job as they thought they were going to be. Not that they were doing it badly. And I think that's the pickle they're in now. I mean, honestly, yes, if they came out and said and had Pike and his crew discover alternate realities, and that they officially tell us that, okay, what you're seeing, on Secret Hideout Productions live action is not the same continuity that you were looking at before. Instead of trying to tell us that it is, and that we're stupid for pointing out all the differences, I think they would be enjoying a lot more success. And it shows up in so many different. And I'm sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I mean, you just look at the character of Dr. Mbenga, for example. Okay, what are they going to do when they get to the point where McCoy is supposed to take over as CMO and Mbenga is sort of downgraded to just a surgeon on his staff when he was the CMO? What could possibly lead to that? I get the feeling that they chose Mbenga to be on the cast of Strange New Worlds because of his African descent, and that it looks good when you look at the cast. You have a diverse cast, and that's fine. But I mean, what's going to happen now? This guy is going to get demoted to just a staff surgeon from being CMO and have to work under a guy from Louisiana. I mean, that there's some interesting optics there that they're going to have to surf a little bit.
Well, I would say that I would hope that they would do something like maybe what Babylon 5 did with Dr. Franklin and have him crash and burn, and they have to bring in a replacement, but they don't want to get rid of him because he's still a good Starfleet officer, but he gets demoted for his actions. That could be something easily, and it could be something explored, and it could be something, a storyline that takes place over the course of a season where he's screwing up because of X reason,
right?
And that would make sense.
Yeah, they're going to have to come up with a reason that, and this is going to be tricky, and a lot of people aren't going to buy this. The idea that he can't remain the chief medical officer of the ship, but yet is still trusted to perform surgeries and things. That's where you're gonna run into problems. Normally, something that would disqualify you from a position of leadership is also going to disqualify you from that entire vocation. True. They're going to have to come up with something, whether it's amnesia or something of that nature. That's a possibility. But if it's again, we don't know. But when I saw that Mbenga was the CMO, I'm like, wait a minute. Normally, people progress in their career. I mean, there was one example, of course, that we have on TNG where Dr. Crusher became the head of Starfleet Medical for 1 year and then went back to the ship. They never explain what happened there, why she decided to come back to the Enterprise, but so there's a precedent there that they could probably use, again, but it's, again, the reason why they had that in TNG was to explain, why we have Gates McFadden back, because it was a contract problem, stuff. And, it's one of those situations where the reality of the show has to bend to the reality of behind the scenes stuff in the show. It's just the same as why Riker was offered to command 3 different times on the original, on TNG and never took it. It's because Frakes needed work,
Yeah.
They couldn't just have him get promoted off the show. And it's the same reason why Picard turned down Admiral at least one time that I recall, because he needed work too. And, in today's format, they could have done it where Riker got his own ship, but then be a frequent guest star. They keep running to him in his ship or something, or they could have had Picard get promoted to Admiral, and then he could just do behind the desk communiques to and be a semi-regular there. But that wasn't how TV worked back then.
It killed off Crosby's character.
Yeah, well, that's because she wanted out.
Did you ever read the Star Trek New Frontier series by Peter David?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, I could imagine if they really wanted to keep Riker on the show and still have him promote as logically, in real life they would.
Right.
They could have done what they did with Shelby in that. They literally just gave her another ship, and now storylines take place on both ships.
Right. Exactly. But again, that kind of format breaking. I mean, the Star Trek Next Generation was a formula show in that it took place on the Enterprise. Now, it wasn't until you get to Deep Space Nine where, yes, originally all the episodes sort of took place on the station, but then they started broadening that. And I mean, Deep Space Nine was really about a region of space with the station at its center. I mean, you could have episodes that took place entirely on the Defiant, or on the Promenade, or on Bajor, or on Cardassia. I mean, it became this show that could really, episode to episode, could take place anywhere. It could take place in a rock quarry,
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why a lot of people, myself included, think that Deep Space Nine might be the most superior show overall in the Berman era of Trek, because it became about people and where they worked rather than a place where they worked and lived.
And to be honest, that recognition is something, even though, the whole Star Trek part was kind of abandoned partially by Deep Space Nine, I don't have an issue with that, because the storylines were well written. It was the characters well acted. So when people are like, well, when their major gripe about something like Picard is, well, it doesn't take place on a Federation ship. It's like, I don't care about that part.
Right.
I want the storyline to be good.
Star Trek Deep Space Nine expanded the Star Trek universe in ways that the other shows couldn't do, because it did, it initially took place on a stationary space station. I mean, they tried to make up for it by having the wormhole be right around the corner there, so they could travel huge distance relatively, in a relatively short amount of time. So, but I mean, the level of depth we got on Deep Space Nine in terms of the kinds of stories that could be told compensated for it. I mean, again, if you're only looking at the fact that it's on a space station that slowly turns, the show wasn't solely about life on that station. That's where the characters, most of them, lived and worked, but the stories branched out from there. Enterprise also kind of did this in their 4th season. The show became about a ship that was home ported at Earth and would go out on shorter missions and to and from Earth. They'd fly out, do something, come back to Earth, fly out, which is much more like a naval vessel. Anyway, I mean, and they were starting to embrace that format, and I think that's a good format. I don't know if Secret Hideout can handle that format, but that's where they were at the Berman era when it ended. Hey, Bird. Avis is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that a reference that I'm just not getting? I understand the whole
Orville
thing.
Yes, but Avis in Latin means bird.
Yeah. Bird is the evil.
He's the evil god of the
krill. Yeah.
Well, that would make sense.
It's like it's calling for you, Bird. It's literally. It's like it's Seth MacFarlane is literally not mocking you, but like daring you to take the mantle.
Yes.
Of Avis.
The Krill are space Kurogans, right?
I could see that.
We are not evil. Yeah, it's but that's probably not a can of worms I should open. But oh well.
And I don't think the Krill think they're evil either, Bird.
No, they don't. The Ferengi don't think they're bad either. Neither the Romulans. You know. The Borg know they're evil. They don't care.
The thing goes. Everyone's the hero of their own story.
Well, some people don't. I mean, you know, we're starting to see the pendulum swing for a while there when it came to the narration of villains and such. That became a trend about 20 years ago where, well, the villain always thinks they're the hero. Well, not exactly. I mean, when they, you know, at the Nuremberg trial, the people on trial there, I won't say who they worked for to help the stream, but they knew what they were doing wasn't you know, they knew they weren't the good guys. You know, but they just didn't care, and you know, until their trial, of course. So I mean, there's starting to that pendulum is starting to swing back. Where we're going to start seeing villains again who know they're the bad guys, but they just don't give a crap because they're too self-centered to.
Yeah, but that kind of villain, in my opinion, is kind of boring. I like the villains who know what they're doing is wrong, but they're doing it for a good reason, in their opinion.
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, you don't have to. You can a lot of cookie cutter villains from the past were like the one I described, but you can still enhance that. You can give them layers. I mean, Thanos understood that murdering half the sentient life in the universe was probably not gonna win him any awards, but you know he was so dedicated to his cause that you know. That he didn't. He went through with it anyway. But I mean, and I think he thought he was the hero of his own story, but at the same time, he also had a lack of empathy as well. You know, he looked at it as a calculation more so than and tried to say that he was doing. You know, he was being humane, but you know,
create more resources. Come on,
didn't add up. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why don't you just double the resources in the universe instead? You know? Then you don't have to kill anybody.
Yeah.
But no, it's you know.
Yeah, I always looked at Thanos as being he was always a villain, but he wanted justification for his reasons to kill.
Right. Yeah. You know, you look at I watched it again recently. The Firefly movie Serenity. The villain in there, played by Chiwetel, whatever his name, I can't remember his name, Mordo. You know, he comes right out in that movie. He says, you know, I'm fighting for a better world, and he goes, but I'm not going there. I'm a monster. You know, which was a better line than that movie probably even deserved at some point, because I'm like, okay, that's an interesting position. This idea that he's fighting to create a better world, but he knows it's not for him, it's for others. I mean, wow, you know, okay, that we need to have a bigger conversation. We never got it in the movie, but that was an interesting take for a villain, I thought. You know.
Yeah, but it was, to me, it's like your guys in Nuremberg. Maybe they knew what they were doing was wrong, but they may have thought it was for a good reason.
Yeah, maybe. Or they just rationalized it. I mean, you know, again, rationalization is the second strongest human drive. It's the one that supports your first human drive.
Justification for rationalization.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But, as far as, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, you know, when Enterprise first came out, right? They tried to be retro, futuristic in that, you know, Archer's in the armory, right? And so the bridge calls down to the armory, and Archer goes to the wall, hits a button, and is talking to the bridge, right? That's how it is on modern submarines.
Mm-hmm.
But then by the fourth season, Archer is walking down the hallway, and the bridge calls him on his communicator, and he holds up the communicator up to his face almost like a cell phone, a flip phone. And so now all of a sudden he doesn't have to go to the wall to receive a communication from the bridge, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's a bit of a problem because, of course, then we have Kirk on his Enterprise still had to talk to the wall. And one of the big innovations of TNG was that they all could communicate through their badges, their the comm badges, and it almost felt like Enterprise was leapfrogging to a more TNG style of communicating with each other on ship. And I thought to myself, well, that's, they got to come up with a reason for this.
It's called progress in technology. Within 5 years,
right. But this is the problem. This is the problem with prequels, though, is because you have to be extra careful about stuff like that.
Well, hold on. Was there never a situation in TOS? Because I can't think of one offhand right now. But didn't they ever pull out the communicator instead of walking to the wall? Instead of I don't recall it, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But of course, what do we think of? We think about trouble with tribbles. Kirk goes to a wall station and answers because they announce that Kirk Mr. Paris wants to talk to you, over like the 1MC basically, and so then Kirk goes to the wall and says, "I'll take it right here," and whereas Enterprise, of course, at the point Enterprise that was in its fourth season, cell phones were really starting to become people started dropping their landlines for cell phones because the service became so reliable. And so it was one of these things where, okay, I didn't think they were wrong, but you kind of have to maybe explain away a little bit about why they did things the way they then did on TOS and in the movies. Kirk did go, talk to his communicator in the movies while he was on the ship. So, maybe there was just not enough communicators to go around for everybody at the time. Maybe that's why it was only issued to you when you went on an away mission. Something like that would be fine. And the captain was the only person we saw who answered calls. So maybe, the captain kept his communicator on him at all times because he was the captain. He could do whatever he wanted, right? But Ensign, Dingleberry isn't going to be carrying around his communicator because, there's only so many to go around. There's little answers we can give, little excuses we can give for the continuity problems like that. But it is a problem that anybody runs into when they try to do a prequel. And this thing we've had for the last 22 years, where pretty much ever since the Star Wars, the second set of Star Wars movies came out, where we're getting nothing but prequels now. It seems like nobody wants to move forward, by and large, with exceptions. I think is part of a problem. People don't age in reverse. So I mean, the whole fascination with prequels has caused us to have things like the Lula technology in the MCU movies, where now they're able to make Kurt Russell look like he did in the 70s again, for a few shots. It's pushing technology in one way, but at the same time it's creating a lot of other problems. And I just looking forward. Maybe I'm weird because I would much rather them just recast the person if they're going to do a prequel, and I don't have an issue with that. It's like Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness.
Yeah,
I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was brilliant about Doctor Who before Chibnall took over was they did a special movie called An Adventure in Space and Time, where they told the story of how they made the first Doctor Who TV show, and they cast an actor to play William Hartnell. But then in the regular Doctor Who show, they actually had that same actor play the first Doctor, and it worked because you're not going to get rather than try to have some Forrest Gump technology with William Hartnell reprising his role as the Doctor, they simply recast him with an actor we'd already seen play that actor before, and to me it worked, at least visually. It's like, okay, this is the new first Doctor now, But again, I can't. There's some other problems that I have with the choices of other actors to play various characters. But I mean, again, I don't think. I think what happened was that when the second set of Star Wars movies came out and blew up the whole movie industry, and with all the money they made, I think people looked at, well, they liked it because it was a prequel. No, they liked it because it was a Star Wars movie.
What about Ian McDiarmid? He was the original, he was the original Palpatine. He's still reprised role as Palpatine. They didn't recast the guy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, he was young enough to still play that character.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you need him to do? I mean, he's not like he's doing sword fights.
Besides, there's been some the first Emperor. I mean, they had a different person in makeup. So
you're right. And some of the casting they've done is excellent. I mean, Ewan McGregor as the young Obi-Wan, I'm still very impressed. I mean, the first time I heard him talk as a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'm like, whoa, I'm totally buying that's him. I thought that's great casting. I was actually fairly impressed with Zachary Quinto as a younger Spock too in the JJ film. Yeah, I mean, he was not playing the same kind of Spock. His Spock was much more in touch with his human side emotions, but at the same time, when he was calm, cool, and collected and delivering lines, I bought it.
Yeah, I remember that interview that Nimoy said after they got done doing that scene. He's like, he embodies the character Spock perfectly. I love this guy.
Yeah. Sometimes casting like that is good. Sometimes it's really bad. I mean,
well, I'm sorry. There's been also some moments where Carl Urban as McCoy is like, okay, I'm buying this too. He's a little bit more energetic than McCoy seemed to be, but he's got it. I wanted to see more of Carl Urban as McCoy. Yeah. Or just, when he was first introduced, he's sitting on the transport next to Kirk and he's saying that, space is disease and darkness wrapped in silence and whatever the line was. And he says it with this wild-eyed, pessimism, I just thought that was...
Even the planet, I've left my bones.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, okay, I'm buying this. This is some good casting.
Hola, Marisa.
Yeah, hard to
Mrs.
cast.
Miles in the house. Everyone say hi.
Is that Morse code?
Always gotta interrupt the show every time she's here because I love her.
That's Morse code for you guys are all idiots. Yeah, okay.
As much as I liked Simon Pegg, I didn't like him as Scotty as much. I mean, I kind of had to he's fine, But and then they didn't get for Sulu. They didn't get somebody with. I mean, one of the signature elements of George Takei's performance as Sulu was that his voice sounds like it comes from the center of the earth, and it's deep. And this guy that they got to play JJ Sulu was didn't have that same presence. And
what about Antoine as Chekhov?
Yeah, Antoine as Chekhov was also. I would have preferred somebody who looked a little bit more like a member of the Monkees.
I would say I don't like, I thought his look was fine because I didn't care about that as much as the acting, and he didn't seem to bring the same energy or the undeserved self-confidence that Chekhov had.
Yeah, well, Chekhov's whole conceit about the best things in humanity's ever come up with came from Russia. I don't remember him saying a line like that, and that was one of his signature character elements from the original series. Was that it was invented by a little old lady in Leningrad or whatever, and he didn't have that. He had other quirks about him. He was very good with the transporter. Scotty was a little bit better, but and Uhura was a very different character as well. I mean, they kind of shifted the trio from Bones, Spock, and McCoy, or Kirk, Spock, and Bones, to Kirk, Spock, and Uhura, so it's a different trio. I didn't care for that too much, but again, what I'm getting at is some casting is great. Ewan McGregor, Zachary Quinto, and other casting isn't so great. I'm not impressed with, and I'm sure she's a fine actress. I'm not impressed though with the actress they selected to play Uhura in SNW. Again, fine actress. I mean, I just don't see her becoming Nichelle Nichols at all, like I did with Ewan McGregor. I could see him becoming Alec Guinness. You know what I mean? Not saying she's a terrible actress. Not saying anything like that at all. I just don't see it. You know, especially with what they've chosen to do with her hair.
I'm gonna have to just say I don't have an opinion on it yet because I haven't seen Strange New Worlds. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna,
and full disclosure, I haven't watched it either. I have seen clips of her and interviews and a few things about it. So I probably shouldn't say much about her. But again, just based on her visual look, I don't see Nichelle Nichols coming out of this actress.
Yeah, because Nichelle Nichols' character was basically at one station repeating lines like Sigourney Weaver's character in the Galaxy Quest. They're actually expanding her character. She's not just at one station. She's interacting with the crew, interacting with her own adventures. So they're expanding her character.
I have a problem with her being a cadet and being on the ship as well. This idea that that Secret Hideout keeps wanting to put cadets on the ship, or on the ships plural, is not in keeping with the naval traditions of Starfleet. But then they've done a lot of things that negate the naval traditions of Starfleet as well. They're starting to on Discovery. They changed verbiage based on what a civilian would experience taking an ordinary flight. So, for example,
be fair,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, just to go back to your whole little cadet tangent. Even Star Trek II had the Enterprise filled with cadets at the time.
Well, that's because it was a training mission. I mean, that was expressly stated, but you know, these other ships, Discovery and Enterprise, are not on training missions designed to teach cadets at this point. They're a serving line vessel. We had midshipmen on my submarine because as part of their curriculum, they had to spend a week on board, and it's just a week, you know. But they seem to have this idea that cadets are ensigns.
Her cadet character is there temporarily. Even Pike said so.
Yeah, they wouldn't have them doing. I mean, the cadets that we had on board, midshipmen that we had on board Trepang didn't really stand any actual stations. And if they did, if there was ever something real that needed to happen, they would get out of that chair and let somebody who was actually fully trained to do that, you know, sit there. I mean, it doesn't come off right to me. It's something that a civilian would decide to do as a writer or a showrunner. It's not somebody that had with any experience would have. And
well, the U.S. military is different than the Federation, so maybe they had different protocols.
That's true. You can fudge it that way, but Star Trek and Starfleet, especially in the era of Pike and Kirk, was heavily influenced by the Navy. I mean, that was a lot of the people that were writing those scripts back for Desilu were naval, you know, and Army veterans, including Roddenberry himself.
Well, do you think, just to change it a little bit, do you think that one of the reasons they want to say cadet as opposed to ensign or anything like that is simply so they could hire a younger actor or actress to have that part?
Cadet sounds better than midshipman. The actual term is midshipman. But
what was Wesley's official term before he was ensign?
He was an acting ensign, right?
Yeah,
he was an acting ensign.
Yeah,
that's true. He wasn't a cadet, right?
No.
Yeah. And you know, if they made, you know, again, it's just there's a lot of things here that seem forced in order to get certain characters on, you know, M'Benga as CMO and Uhura on the ship. But I mean, again, I don't have a lot to say about the content of the show since I'm not watching it. I get, you know, Secret Hideout had a chance with me. I gave them ample opportunity, and I've decided not to give them, my sub, and I'm not. But I mean, I'm just commenting on the casting choices here.
I gotta hit mute. I gotta make some coffee.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'm just weird because I'm going to give each series a chance on its own, and I'll judge it by its own merit, not necessarily trying to compare it to the other ones that came before it.
Right.
But as I said, I did not like Star Trek Discovery's first 2 seasons, which is why it took me years to just start watching season 3. Yeah. And even then, I'm still I've watched 1 episode a week in the last, several months.
Yeah. My opinion of Secret Hideout will change because they've created 5 seasons of television, 3, I believe, with Discovery, 2 with Picard that have terrible, in my opinion. If we get to beginning of a 6th season of Strange New Worlds, and people are still saying it's consistently better than those first 5 seasons, at that point, then they will have broke even mathematically, and I might give them a chance. But I just don't see it at this point. I don't think it's in their DNA to be able to create the kind of shows that previous generations of Star Trek creators were able to.
How many episodes of Strange New Worlds have you seen yet, Darren?
None. I just got done explaining that.
Oh, okay. I want to clarify that. Sorry.
Yeah. I have not.
Did you catch the first? Did you catch the first episode when we put it on in the backstage?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you weren't there for that? Okay.
Who speaks?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. I'm putting away groceries in the refrigerator that has 0 room for it.
Let me ask you something also. Has Nurse Chapel professed her love for Spock on Strange New Worlds yet?
Technically, yes, and technically, no.
Technically, yes.
Okay, well,
what's this yes word?
I'm asking a yes or no question. Has she professed to Spock her love for him yet?
Both the answers can be yes and no.
Okay, so that can't be yes or no.
Actually, it is because it's a spoiler if I tell you what happened in an episode. So
okay.
Yes.
So is it a situation where
Put it in private chat?
Is it a situation where she said it to him and then he forgot somehow?
He never forgot. I'm going to put it in a private chat, okay?
Okay, because we know exactly when she eventually does that. It's on TOS. It's just like I've seen images of
private chat.
Go ahead.
Private chat. Because people do not like spoilers. I just put that 3 words in there.
I don't know what word you decided to use in private chat.
I'm sorry, hang on. Let me I can't spell correctly, so you know what this is, right?
Don't use auto incorrect.
The answer is no. It's just
okay. That's good.
Thank you. Finally.
Because the
a liar.
Because I don't know. I don't even know what that is. Elihu. Sorry.
Okay, never mind. I can't spell. Okay.
Okay. That's fine.
I mean,
we know it was. Well, correct me wrong if I'm wrong, but wasn't it stated also in a mock time that Spock hadn't seen T'Pring since they were children?
I believe so.
Yes, and yet we see them in bed as adults in Strange New Worlds. I mean, it's things like that.
There's certainly mistakes.
Yeah, and again, I would be perfectly fine with all of these changes.
Here it is. Here's the cop out.
If they told us that this was
they had to tell us.
Thing. Yeah.
Yes, because we all know that canon is not with the viewer.
Yeah, but instead they told us that it is, and they told us that we shouldn't expect them to follow the continuity of the previous series. So it's again,
when you believe them.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
That's my biggest problem with them, and that's why. And then they've got some people on places like YouTube that seem to be almost on the take that are calling you names for pointing out continuity errors and saying, look, this can't be part of the same continuity. And they'll tell you that you're overreacting. It's just a TV show and all that kind of stuff. And
just to defend some things like that, because as I said, I don't say I hate Discovery per se. I like the fact that it's brought back Trek to the mainstream again. but I also said I don't like the first 2 seasons, and I've said why I don't like the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, you know,
So,
the
me,
shorts like the trouble with
bag.
Edward, and I mean, was just, I mean, that was disgusting to me. But there are some things about Discovery that I liked. There's some little things, these little ideas that I liked, and you know, and it's a shame because some of those little ideas were, I thought, some very good ideas, and added some flavor to it. But again, you know, they were not honest with us from the get-go, and there's a problem there.
Yeah, it's amazing how one little change could turn a series like that it makes us mad into something that would be like, okay, this is not so bad after all. And all they would have to do is say, it's a different timeline, or it's a different universe.
No, all you do is say Worf's excuse. It's internal. We don't talk about it to outsiders.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. There's a good point there in that moment in Trials and Tribulations, where they acknowledged that the Klingons of Kirk's era looked different than the ones from their era. That was a huge deal when they did that, and it was later refined by Enterprise. But I mean, just the fact that because before that you were just supposed to ignore that.
Honestly, it could have gone either way.
Right.
I mean, that was a fact where you've got this irreparable, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say, an inconsistency that's about to, smack right in front. And now you've got to do something. You can either ignore it, pretend they're both Klingons and nobody notices a difference, which could have been done. Or you say, yeah, they're both Klingons, like Worf did. Honestly, both would have been fine.
Right. I mean, the best thing that Secret Hideout could do right now, especially with the whole thing that Marvel's been doing with multiverses, is to come out and say, we've been telling stories in our own continuity. It's, Star Trek is a multiverse. And I tell you what, if they did that, I would applaud them.
Yeah, Feige even said the Marvel movies is an adaptation of the comic books. It's not a per se; it's an adaptation.
Well, yeah. What I would like to see them do, and this was just because we've been talking about this, and it's something Darren and I actually agree on. What I would like them to do is have a Troubles and Tribulations type episode where the crew accidentally is transported to an episode of TOS. And they start looking and they think they're thinking that they're in the same universe and everything. But we find out that no, the technology is actually vastly different. It's, the technology is less than what it should be, but we're somehow, in the future slightly. What's going on? And they discover, we're not in our universe.
Right.
We're in the prime timeline. Shoot, we have to get back without
which also has a mirror
timeline.
Universe. Oh God.
They could do that, and then they would be expanding the overall Star Trek franchise in a huge way if they did that.
Yeah,
and honestly, it would also make the franchise more inclusive right now, because there's a lot of people like myself who are just turned off by the idea that the Enterprise has astromech droids that conduct repairs on the hull and things of that nature. When they clearly didn't in the past.
From a real world standpoint, I think the idea of them having the droids that do that kind of stuff is incredibly, pragmatic, but it wasn't instituted in the right set of the timeline that's been preceded before it. That's why I didn't like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if they had stuff like that on the Starfleet ships that we see in Picard that take place, whatever it is, 20, 30 years after TNG and Avengers ended, brilliant. I mean, again, I think Secret Hideout kind of made a tactical error, if I can call it that, in starting out with the prequels, Yeah.
Well, see, and that would have been extremely good with relation to the whole synth thing. That they could have had. Oh, we got these, class 1 droids, or essentially that repair the ships when we need them to be repaired, and we have these class D or F or 5 class synths that are manual labor that are in humanoid shape. And that's why we classified everything as a synth as opposed to an android, to dehumanize them. That way, we can have this slave race that was brought up in Measure of a Man.
Right.
They could have tied it all together very nicely, neatly in a short amount of time, but they just didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been brilliant. They said, you know what, our Picard takes place in an alternate reality where Captain Picard lost that legal battle in Measure of a Man. Something of that nature. I think maybe that's what you were referring to. But again, I don't want to sit here and hate something called Star Trek. I'd prefer not to, but there's certain things that have to be done first. And like I say, the smartest thing, best thing that Secret Heart could do is, especially, and now would be the easiest time to do it because multiverse is starting to really take off. I mean, we got that last Spider-Man movie was such a crowd-pleasing treat. I mean, I loved that movie to death, and having Garfield in there and having Tobey Maguire in there, the three cinematic Spider-Mans all together, and if they did something, they don't have to do exactly that, but if they did something like what you suggested, where they do for one episode pop back into an authentic looking Star Trek production, and then go back to their usual stuff. That would be an incredible thing to do.
Did anyone here actually ever watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon shows, or read the comics?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, yes.
Cartoon.
Okay. The 2003 cartoon, I didn't really watch it all too much, but I did watch the series finale of it because they did a Spider-Man No Way Home type thing where they actually had the original actors, if they could, replacements if they couldn't, voice the 80s cartoon characters, and they even brought in the serious black and white turtles from the comic books to make an overarching villain scenario. Mm-hmm. And it worked very well. It was really well done. And that was from, 2006, 2007?
I remember that because they were making fun of hey, look, they have little initials on the belts.
Yeah.
I remember that cartoon.
Yeah.
So this concept isn't old, but they could easily do it, and fans will accept it if they do it right.
Right.
They did it for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They did it for Spider-Man. They could do it for Star Trek easily.
Hell, Batman even crossed over with the Turtles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's when they try to replace the stories that we've seen and loved from the past. I think that a lot of it hits people.
Mortal Kombat.
In a way they don't like. It's like all of a sudden, so the Klingons had effective cloaking devices before the Romulans did now. It's like the idea that they're trying to invalidate Balance of Terror, for example. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, What's that?
Sorry, Darren. I have to apologize. Elihu is actually right. They did, but they didn't. I don't know how I forgot that. There's only
Okay, at the end. So at the end of the episode, she still hadn't told him, and he didn't.
Right
know.
At the end of the episode, he didn't know.
Okay. That's what I was getting at. Was at the end of the episode, right.
Yeah, some people care about spoilers. I was trying to word it carefully.
There's some ideas that I know that that they have in Strange New Worlds that sound compelling to me. The idea that Pike kind of knows what his ultimate fate is going to be, or at least what his future has in store, with him.
Yeah, and he's taking risk for that. Did you notice that? He's taking more and more risk because he knows his future. He's like, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to survive this. I'm not going to die for years. But I did not like that part that he's actually taking more risks. Sorry, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fine.
I like that part.
Discovery did it kind of weird where I remember they showed him sort of they showed like flashbacks or recaps, but they showed you stuff from the cage, where it's Jeffrey Hunter as Pike. They didn't, rather than try to recreate some of that stuff in their own way with their own actors. They threw in the original Telosians, and they threw in Mina and we were just supposed to accept that these are being played now by different actors. It was an interesting choice that they made, and again.
And they did connect from Strange New Worlds to Discovery. So this is definitely supposed to be the same Pike. Just
Yeah.
so we're clear.
Yeah. I'm not. I did think it was neat that Discovery could travel one of two ways: on conventional warp drive, and they had their magic mushroom bullshit drive too. But
This Mycelial network.
Yeah, a ship that has more than one propulsion system is very interesting to me. It kind of reminds me of the Red October from the Hunt for October. It had the regular normal propulsion with propeller, but then it also had the Caterpillar drive.
They also have bicycle/mopeds called electric bikes, so those are odd.
Didn't know that.
You've never heard of a moped before?
Yeah, dude, you can pedal with the bikes and the engine goes out and you run out of gas.
I've heard of a moped. I didn't know that's how it worked.
Yeah, it's basically a bicycle that has a small engine attached to it. So you can ride it as a bicycle, or you can turn on the engine and ride it as a motorcycle.
Unfortunately, illegal in the great state of New York.
Really?
But I mean,
I love those.
Yeah.
Illegal in New York City.
Well, they had, what were they called? Bird scooters?
Avis scooters?
What about?
No. They were. You've heard of those, right, Elihu? Where you basically use your phone to activate it, and they basically just they got a really weird business model. They dump a whole bunch of these scooters, battery-driven scooters, into a city, and then if you find one you want to use one, you just use your phone to activate it and pay for it to be in operation for a little while, and you're able to use it, and then you just leave it somewhere in the city, and then somebody else will grab it. It's weird because we had them try to do that in Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's like, we don't want you littering our city with these things, and they banned them, and they encourage everybody, if you find one like on the sidewalk or on your yard or something, just keep it.
Well, that's called theft, and by the way, San Francisco had a problem with that when they introduced electric scooters in the city.
Right.
People were basically doing that, blocking the sidewalk on the path, putting it in the middle of the street. And there was legislation that got passed. If you end up doing that, Lyft can ban you from using their services, and they have banned people from using their services because they misappropriate their policy. They would just leave it in the middle of the street. People report it. Okay, here's the scooter number that's on it. Okay, let's look into it. Okay, who rented this scooter here? Okay, boom, here's a warning. Boom, you're banned. You can't do this anymore. Then they have a little on the agreement says that you have to abide by city laws. You cannot ride on the sidewalk.
Milwaukee made them illegal after they dumped a whole a few thousand of them into the city, and they just said, look, it's not theft if you find them abandoned, which is what their business model is. So,
All right. Sorry, I'm going to go back a little bit because I was confused about what you said, Bird. And no, mopeds are not illegal in the state of New York or the city of New York. They're illegal in North Carolina, though.
Really?
I have an electric scooter there. That's how I get around the city.
Now, it is illegal to drive one faster than 30 miles an hour, even though most of them are capable of hitting 40. And technically, it's illegal for them to have more than a 2 horsepower engine, and almost every single one sold has a 3 or higher horsepower engine. But yeah, they are completely legal in New York and New York City. You just have to register them with the DMV.
That might be
Type C license.
Might be easier said than done.
It says it is illegal to drive them on the sidewalk, but you have to get a Class A, B, or C license in the state of New York to use one.
Yeah, I think it's a Class C in New York, Class A here in California.
But apparently a Class M license, which is usually reserved for motorcycles, is not required for a moped, which is interesting.
Yeah. How did we get on scooters all of a sudden?
I forgot.
Sorry, I've only been to New York City once, and I know I saw people on mopeds, so I was like, that can't be right. Let me look it up.
Yeah. What I was getting at, though, is, and there's been some minor controversy I've been involved with another YouTuber here within the last 2 weeks regarding Strange New Worlds. I'll eventually watch the show if certain things happen. But again, Secret Hideout in my opinion, had their chance, and so far they've blown it. I mean,
so you complain about a show you haven't even watched.
But I mean, the controversy. Well, no, the controversy that I was referring to was because I made the statement on somebody else's stream that I thought that the Orville has handled female characters better than Secret Hideout has, and I was basing that off of 5 seasons worth of television that they've already put live action television they put out. And someone disagreed with me, stating that, well, and at the time I think only about 5 or 6 episodes of Strange New Worlds had come out, and that because I hadn't seen those 5 or 6 episodes, I was speaking from a position of ignorance. And I'm like, well, mathematically, I have more than enough evidence to say that they don't at this time. And I thought that person was being unreasonable and disrespectful, and I told him so in very colorful ways. But again, I'm not a hater on this. Simply not watching something isn't an indication to me of hate. But if I continue to hear good things, and especially if they do what we talked about here, where they come out and say, okay, this is our take, it's not in continuity with everything else, then yeah, definitely I'll look into it. Yeah, because I would like to be. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to add, I would like to be, it would be nice to watch a show called Star Trek and enjoy it. At this point, right now, I'm kind of getting my fix from the Orville. It's not perfect, but it's certainly better than what I've seen from Secret Hideout prior to today. So,
well, ironically, the show
I got into a discussion with somebody
about Lower Decks and Prodigy.
Hey, dude, I got into a discussion with somebody about the Orville because they said, no, I don't want to watch no comedy in space. I'm like, dude, the Orville did a 180. No episode so far is a comedy. You're gonna take a one-liner joke here and there, but no episode is a comedy. He's like, really?
It is strange because the characters aren't acting any different than they normally would in the previous 2 seasons. Just that they're not being given gags, first of all, and they're not put in a humorous situation. I mean, you look at the comedy that was in shows like The Trouble with Tribbles and You Are Cordially Invited over on Deep Space Nine, right? Those were legitimately funny episodes, and they were the truest definition of the sitcom comedy. The characters were put into a ridiculous or humorous situation. That can still happen on the Orville, but so far they haven't done one. No. And when there will be humor, it won't be because of somebody bored us watching Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or something of that nature. It'll be because of something like Geloja, where it's that time of year again for Bordas. We got to take him back again so he can do his business. It won't be forced.
Which that should have been last episode. That was the perfect thing to get everybody off the ship and to watch him Geloja. That it would have been a great way to just slide in a Geloja because you're supposed to get at least one Geloja a year.
We always wanted to hear Bordas sing. Okay, this was the whole point.
Even I would rather see I'd rather see him piss than sing. Yeah,
everyone wanted to see and hear him sing. So Seth said, "Okay, go ahead and sing."
The thing that it makes me think they won't do it is because we've already seen the Geloja. Obviously, they've kind of used that.
You could have sang and Geloja.
But it's done with friends
singing Geloja.
Yeah, there could be an episode where Bordas arrives on the ship after having just gone back to Maklis for his Geloja or something like that. They could reference it. Then the other thing they could do is they could say, well, a Maklan year is different than a human year, and so they could never, they might never have, reference Geloja again. Who knows? I mean, they could, there's all these different things they could do. But I've been finding the show fascinating. This season, I think that they've really layered some things, and I was going to be addressing that in the video that I was scripting as we were writing this or being on the stream. But it definitely they're definitely seeding different what do you want to call it, sociopolitical topics in a way that there's elements from each side on both sides and vice versa. So it's hard to say that so-and-so represents this other real real world group. And I don't want to be too vague, but
basically you hear both sides of a political opinion in one episode. Right. It's not force-centered. It's not force-centered one way or the other. It's actually both equal sides.
Yeah, you get to ponder the situation.
Each person's viewpoints.
Yeah, the way good television used to do. But oh, hello, Yvette.
Hi, Yvette.
Hello. Can you hear me all right? I'm sat in front of a big fan.
Hello there.
Hold on. I just want to say, since Yvette's here, I need to do a very big thank you to Yvette. Yesterday, I finally bought my new computer. It should be delivered later this week. And you were a big help for that. And I want to make that quite clear, because between you and not Ryan Johnson, you guys helped pay for almost 10% of this new computer. So I really want to show my appreciation for you two. So thank you very much, Yvette, for your help. It means a lot to me.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
And I want to make that clear, because I know you're not on Twitter, so you didn't see my tweet about it yesterday.
No, I'm not on Twitter, man. No.
Oh, Mike, I should be getting a new computer within about a month.
Oh, nice.
I'm not. It's a computer. We have to establish this, and not a Mac.
Yes, it will not be a Mac. I will be buying a computer.
Yes, a real computer. The boy gets to turn from wood into flesh. He'll have a real computer.
Boy.
Yeah.
Pinocchio. That's a Pinocchio reference for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, so basically I get to pull a Scotty. Hello, computer. Yeah. Hello, computer. Bloody keyboard, how antiquated.
If I want to make one more comment on Star Trek, years ago they were talking about how Quentin Tarantino wanted to do a Star Trek film, and given the way the JJ verse doesn't seem to be able to make another movie, we hear things, and we hear things have gone, falling apart again and stuff. Honestly, I kind of want to see what he would do, because
same here.
Every indication is that he would do something very authentic to Desilu's Star Trek, because he's in love with the television and movies of that period, the late 60s. And he's done 3 period pieces that just exude competence. Hateful Eight, Inglourious Bastards, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And he didn't in the middle of Western have Samuel L. Jackson, call somebody a bunch of 20th century profanity. He kept everything, period appropriate. So, and given that he loves that late 60s look, I just think that a Tarantino Star Trek film would be worth seeing.
So we're going to have 0 lens flares?
It's not going to be any worse than what we got now, as far as I'm concerned. Tarantino is a good director. He's a really good actor.
Yeah.
I'd say that. He was in Dusk Till Dawn, and I like that.
Yeah. So, when people first heard
that
he was...
with it is Tarantino has gone out of his way to say he's only going to make a certain amount of movies as a director. Right. And I don't know if I want to waste one of those on a star. I know it sounds crass, or maybe wrong a little bit, but I don't want him to waste one of the few movies he plans on making or directing being a Star Trek movie.
There is that, yes.
Unless he really wants to do it. Tarantino only makes films he wants to make. And to bear in mind, if he's interested in Star Trek, then he's going to put his whole heart into it. Yeah. And
I would love to see one of his takes.
Yeah, it's and as I say, I didn't give New Trek as much chance as you guys have. I found it absolutely appalling from the start. Post Picard, I mean, Jesus Christ. Patrick Stewart played him for how long? And that is not the Picard we know.
Right. Yeah.
And I think, Bird, you were pointing that out yesterday, weren't you?
Yeah, we found out just how little Patrick Stewart understood the character that defined much of his career in this. Yeah. He didn't really seem to understand or even like the character, it seems like.
No, he was. Yeah. he turned into a grumpy old man overnight, and it was like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck am I watching? Literally,
a sad, pathetic character, really.
Bitter in his older years.
So and I will not. I'm one of these people. I will not waste my time on something I'm not enjoying. Hey, darling.
Ervik Sonder, yes, Tarantino did Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2.
Yeah.
It's the only time he's ever done a sequel. It was Kill Bill Volume 2.
To be fair, it's not really a sequel as much as it is a second part to the same movie. And I think when he was talking about his hard limit on how many movies he's going to make, Kill Bill only qualifies as one movie.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, when I saw Hateful Eight, I was so impressed with how he mimicked the grandeur of foreign westerns. You know, that establishing shot of the haberdashery, for example. I mean, he just made some of those shots in that film are like a painting. And some of them incredibly gory and nasty looking paintings, but the beauty of the American West he really captured really well, and just like almost like a spaghetti western director would capture the beauty of Spain in their movies. But no, I think that definitely the one thing that he would probably do that wouldn't feel authentically Star Trek is if he had any sort of a hand-to-hand combat fight. I just don't see. I mean, if you look at the kind of violence at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I could see him. Not where he's not going to give us 1960s television fighting. He's going to give us something a little more visceral. But again, it's all conjecture. It's all hypothetical at this point. I would like to see him.
He might be a huge Star Trek fan. Yeah. And the fact he's mentioned it, which is
he has.
surprising. I didn't know that. And
he says he is.
Yeah. Well, he's going to do what he remembers. He's very authentic. You just said that. And Star Trek is not gory. And he'll put his spin on it, but he won't take it to the levels he's taken most of his other films.
See, I could see him having something where like maybe you have a group of aliens and they do something gory, but not the human characters on the ship or whatnot. Who knows? Yeah. I mean, we don't know what he's going to be doing.
No.
I mean, I would love to see him actually do something not on the Enterprise, like have something in the Lexington or the Exeter or something like that, just so that he could get away with certain things that he wouldn't otherwise be able to get away with. But I'd like to see him do that film, because obviously at this point it doesn't seem like he can really hurt it.
Well, that's my point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every series I watch, new series. I mean, I joined the boys in series 3, and I will go back and watch series 1 and 2 now.
I haven't got a chance to watch a new episode yet. Sorry, that's on my queue today.
I'm not going to say anything. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know.
No spoilers. Yeah.
No spoilers. No. But I was just pointing out. Yeah. I've not wasted my time on that, and the fact that Eric Kripke is the showrunner has actually made it more enjoyable, because I am seeing Eric Kripke in The Boys, because he created Supernatural. So I know Kripke really well.
For those of you who don't know, Supernatural is Yvette's one of her favorite shows of all time. She will waste no opportunity to bring it up in casual conversation.
Along with her cutout, life-size cutout.
I don't know what you're talking about, Darren. I have no idea. I think you're lying.
Oh, is that the car they drive called the Metallic car?
Yes, the Metallic car.
Yeah, I don't think anyone knows I'm a fan of Supernatural.
The other thing
about it.
The other thing I know about Tarantino is he knows that you don't have to have a huge budget to do a good Star Trek show, especially if you're setting it in the TOS sort of time frame. So he's going to get the lighting right. I mean, you look at for example, Trials and Tribulations, when they recreated sets on the Enterprise. Those were some of the most inexpensive sets they ever built on the show, and the secret was the lighting. They lit it in the same way that they lit the show on the 60s, and Tarantino's all of that stuff. So if he does get some big money to spend on the show, he's going to put it where it counts. And
well, that's my point. If he is a fan of Star Trek, he's not going to make a movie he's not going to enjoy making. So if he does it, he's going to put everything into it like he does with all his other films. So I think it'll be worth seeing. And at this point, as probably the lowest member of Trek's new, because I literally 2 episodes of Picard and went, no, this is not worth my time. Literally not worth my time. And Discovery, oh my God, I think three episodes I got through that and went, no, that's it, Star Trek's dead. You know, I didn't mind JJ's stuff. I actually thought they pulled off quite a few of the characters really well. But it's, and because it was set in a sort of an alternate, it was okay. You know,
it didn't step on the toes of the stuff that I really liked. Yeah.
And the whole blowing up of Vulcan, I thought that was done very well. All of that.
Yeah.
Oh, the implosion, yes.
Yeah, if you wanted to draw a distinction between the JJ universe and standard Trek, blowing up Vulcan was a huge deal.
Yeah.
The idea that the Vulcans are an endangered species now in the JJ universe is a huge deal. But
brings the Romulans back into it, as far as I'm concerned. If they were going to make another movie, you know, the Vulcans and the Romulans would have to start. I mean, they started this story in the original movies, didn't they?
Yeah, the Vulcan mine or the Romulan mining ship. Yeah.
So it makes sense that if they did another movie like on that timeline, it would still fit reasonably well. It's not too skewered. And again, JJ made it perfectly clear that this was alternate. He was doing it his way. And that made it okay because we were not judging it.
Right. Yeah, we weren't.
The minute they turn around and call it canon, you're going to judge it.
Right. There's a channel on YouTube called Major Grin, and he makes sometimes like 3 or 4 videos a day that point out all of the continuity problems between Secret Hideout and established Star Trek, and it's he means it in jest and such, but you know, it's like he's fully documenting every detail, every line. I mean, the idea that, you know, the reason why Guinan's bar on the Enterprise was called 10 Forward was because she had a bar, you know, in the 20th century called 10 Forward. Well, no, it's because that was the name of the space the bar occupied on the ship. Deck 10, you know, forward.
Yeah.
And but Stewart didn't know that because he doesn't really know the lore of the show that made him famous, you know.
Yes, and that was so disappointing with Picard more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know,
hold on. I almost want to defend that a little bit because it could have just been a huge coincidence. And I'll give a Star Trek semi-related example. In Star Trek Online, when I first started playing, I couldn't think of a good name for my ship. So I named it the Afterthought. Because I thought, you know, the USS Afterthought, because I named it after a thought. Ha, ha, ha.
Right.
Well, when I got to, when I leveled up my character, I chose the Prometheus class as my main ship because I liked the Prometheus class and I thought it was a good warship to be using.
Dude, you said it. You said the P word twice. Watch out.
Hold on, and I just want to finish. And I wanted to come up with a really good idea. A good idea? No, because I'm not playing the game. It's only applied to you, LDG. So I wanted a really good name for my ship. So I, typed in, Prometheus into the Google, and I was looking at the history of the myths related to Prometheus, and I find out that he has a brother. And I look up the name of his brother, and it's Epimetheus.
Yeah.
Oh,
and what is Epimetheus is the personification of the Afterthought.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I understand.
So I'm like, that's the name of my ship. Because it just by coincidence, it matched up perfectly. So I can kind of forgive that. that she had a bar named 10 forward, and now she's going to be in a bar that's on the 10th deck forward section. 10 forward.
Here's what I need to get this out though, because the reason why I said what I said was because in an interview promoting the episode in which we see the new actress as Guinan, Patrick Stewart said, "We finally found out why her bar on the Enterprise was called 10 Forward. It's because that was the name of her bar in in California in the 20th century." Patrick Stewart said that in an interview. And that was what Major Grin took, and then supported, with dialogue from TNG, why it was called 10 Forward. It was because that was the section of the ship that it occupied. Now you can say that it was a coincidence, but for Patrick Stewart to come out and say the reason why it was called 10 Forward on the Enterprise was because that's what her bar, her previous bar was called in California, shows he doesn't understand.
It was called.
He's an actor on the show.
Joined.
He's not. He's not going to know all the minutia.
But you want to know something? James Doohan read the Scotty Star Trek technical manual and could talk to you about it. He knew the ins and outs of the Enterprise and how impulse worked and how warp drive works, and because he was into it. And Patrick Stewart, it was a job to him. He delivered his lines and went home and whatever he did at home. And this is where we run into a problem, because a lot of these actors, Brent Spiner has said he's only ever seen one Star Trek movie, and that was First Contact, because he was contractually obligated to attend the premiere. He doesn't watch his own. And a lot of these actors, they don't watch the shows that they star in, because they first of all, they can't enjoy them when they look at a show, especially one that they're in. They know what was beyond the camera. They know about the lights, so they can't get into it. This is why it isn't always a good thing to have an actor come in and try to be a producer on a show. Stewart clearly isn't a fan of his own mythos.
No, he isn't. And it was blaringly obvious.
He's basically there to make sure that the production is comfortable for him to work on. That's why he doesn't want to leave Los Angeles. So that's why a lot of the sets people are recognizing from other shows and things of that nature. He's there to kind of make sure that they don't travel too far, because he's an old man, doesn't want to travel anymore. That's one reason. And there's other things at play as well, but. He when he came out and said that this is the reason why the bar was called 10 Forward, the Star Trek community collectively groaned when they heard that, because it was another indicator that he's not really one of us and doesn't really understand the lore of his own show.
Sorry, what you said, one of us, all I could think of is one of us. One of us.
Google gobble. One of us. Yeah.
Definitely. You see, now I can put this premise onto New Who, right? Mm-hmm. When New Who came out, I was on my toes with Canon, literally. I settled down so fast into it because RTD was a fan, a real fan. Yep. And although they changed a few bits, it was nothing major. Nothing. There are a few. I mean, don't even get me started with the. I'm not even going there. But both of RTD and Moffat to a degree, although Moffat was being pushed from the curtains anyway, kept to the main lore of Doctor Who. The one thing that annoyed the Who fandom was the TARDIS more than anything, because the perception filters came out in New Who. I think we were talking about this the other night, which I like the whole story of that. But in original Who, it literally was like a hologram.
Yeah, it was a piano, it was a rock, it was a tree.
Yeah. You saw it for whatever it blended into.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of the chameleon circuit and why it broke and why it was always a police box, except in one episode of
a great example. I want to just get this out here because I have to take off here in a moment, but they didn't on New Who. They didn't initially try to tell you new stories at the expense of old stories and introduce new concepts at the expense of old ones that you all were familiar with and loved. A great example of that was the Silurians. When we first see the Silurians in New Who, they look exactly like they did in the old show, but then they did something fantastic. They took their face plates off.
Yes.
And so that they could, so they showed you like the new makeup for the Silurians, which meant that what they were saying was that you saw Silurians in the old show, but they were all wearing special helmet mask things.
Yes.
And that's why they looked like people wearing masks. And I thought that's
a very good example. That is a very good example. And the Who community liked it in general. I mean, not everyone is happy with everything. Don't get me wrong. But in general, the Silurians were liked, and obviously the Weeping Angels were one of the biggest things to ever come out.
Don't blink.
Of sci-fi.
In Doctor Who.
But I need to add. Yeah, I need to add that now when you go back and you look at the Silurians in old Doctor Who, original Doctor Who, you know what's under those faceplates. It added a dimension to the old show. It was a way of improving the old shows without actually improving them. You know what I mean? And
absolutely. But they did mess with canon. That's how they brought it in, was the faceplates. So they improved on it without messing with it.
Enterprise also did something a little bit similar in that they had the Orions, and they dropped the bombshell in their final appearance on the show, was that the slave girls are actually the leaders of their people, and that's how they conquer. They, the males are actually the slaves, even though they appear to be selling the females, because the females take over wherever they go with their pheromones and such. And that's how that's sort of how they conquer. And it was a great twist. It didn't do anything but add a dimension to the Orion slave girls that we saw in TOS. Because now okay, what they're actually up to, something that is, it added a dimension to them that wasn't there previously. Okay, I'm going to take off. Thanks for having me, Vile.
Take care, Darren.
Later, Darren.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself. Later, Darren.
Yeah.
Hey, Yvette.
Yes.
How's the cloud coverage where you are?
Clear.
Okay, well, if you look south and you hold your arm up like this for conversation prices, or another fist up like this, that dot right above your second fist just happens to be Sorry, crap. It just happens to be Neptune's setting. It sets in about an hour and a half.
Right, yes. What's the time now? I'm doing it at 6:30. Someone even have set by then.
And I just wanted to go back. The reason I muted myself because I was looking something up on Google. Averick said that maybe Patrick Stewart was bitter because he never became a renowned Shakespeare actor. Well, we got Yvette on here. So, Yvette, how important are the Olivier Awards in the UK?
Only to other Shakespeareans.
And the man is Sir Patrick Stewart, I'm sure.
Yes, he is Sir Patrick Stewart. He has voted.
Yeah, I'm just saying, how Shakespeare. So he was.
But I'm just saying, are the Olivier Awards as important to the UK as the Tony Awards are to the United States?
No.
No?
I suppose in some circles they would be, but in the general population, we couldn't give a crap about awards.
I don't give a crap.
Okay, so same thing.
crap anyway. At the Oscars for years
he's
now.
won 2 Olivia Awards, both for doing Shakespearean plays. So that I don't think he's bitter over that, Averick. He is a world-renowned Shakespearean actor, at least for the modern day.
The fact that he got knighted
Yes.
is more impressive to us than the fact he won some award.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the award ceremonies over here just, they've never really, you know, we have the TV awards, you know, and it's just a laughing running gag here. No one but the people involved who are scratchy. It's like the Eurovision Song Contest. Okay, so that has been going on for a long time, and anyone in Europe will know what I'm talking about.
Never heard
While
of it.
And
we're
it's all
beating a
about
dead horse.
politics and scratching your neighbours' backs, and our commentators used to take the absolute piss out of it. And that was the fun thing of watching it, wasn't to see if we could win it, was to see the commentators ripping everyone apart and saying, oh, well, they're going to give the points here. And they would, you know, they predict it because of, in the news at the moment, they're doing a deal in this, that, and the other. And the Eurovision Song Contest is a great example of you know, putting a country number one for a song. And don't get me wrong, Bucks Fizz was fantastic. They won it hands down for what they did. And so I'm just trying to think. ABBA, I think, was on there, and you know, some very famous ones. But in general, the country that won was what Europe wanted to win, and not what the song was about. And it's we've laughed at that for so long that any award ceremonies, nobody bothers with them. I can't even remember. I think passing comments about the Oscars occasionally and going, yeah, well, they had the right amount of so and so's in and they virtual signaled this, that, and the other. They ticked all the boxes. Yeah, they were going to win. It was predictable.
Yeah, they went to the right parties. Yeah.
So yeah, no, the award ceremonies over here are just for them to pat themselves on the backs and say, yeah, we ticked all the boxes. We did exactly what they wanted us to do, not what they saw the movies to do. And that annoys me immensely. All of this.
A few years ago, the only award ceremony worth watching in America were the People's Choice Awards, because the people actually got a chance to choose the winners, not just to the people. Yeah.
Well, that's the funny thing with the TV awards here. There's one section that the people vote for. And it was never the same thing. It was always the top show that got the ratings, you know? Obviously, it's all changed now with streaming and that. But at the time, you know, the people voted for what they watched. And that was another joke. You know, they'd be giving out all these awards to each other, patting themselves on the backs for this, that, and the other. And the people would vote for what they liked.
Yeah, this was the
Nelson
Nelson
ratings. Award, like yours. Yeah,
the Nelson ratings would win, but people wouldn't vote for the show that the Nelson ratings got the highest one for.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to address Everett's comments. He said saying not going to be remembered as a great Shakespearean actor rather than a sci-fi actor. That actually depends on the circles you're in, because some people will remember Michael Jordan as a great basketball player, and some people will remember Michael Jordan as the worst baseball player in the world. So it actually depends on the circle you're in, who somebody's remembered for what.
Yeah, I mean, if you're into Shakespeare, you're going to remember Patrick Stewart for his Shakespeare acting because you will have seen it.
Yeah.
If you're a sci-fi fan, you're going to remember him in TNG. It depends on how you're viewing that actor. And don't get me wrong, you do get typecast into certain roles. And he was. I mean, he played, well, the first season now, but when we watched it originally, it was mind-blowing, TNG, because we'd have nothing. I mean, we were lucky here in the UK because we'd have Blake Seven and, you know, some of the great
Red Dwarf,
early 80s sci-fis. Yeah, Red Dwarf's another one. And we were lucky, but you guys, you know, this was the first Star Trek, and I remember being so excited to see it and loving it. Didn't care how bad the acting was in those few, but at the time, I mean, don't get me wrong, I skip Farpoint every time if I'm going back to watch TNG from the start. I'll skip it, literally skip it. I can't even stand watching Farpoint. It just, ugh.
Well, if we're going to talk about how people are remembered, let's also think about Richard Dean Anderson. To this day, he's mostly famous for a show he did, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Even though he was on Stargate SG-1 for far longer,
he's MacGyver.
People in the public interest only think of him as MacGyver.
Yeah.
He is MacGyver. Come on.
His fan base for MacGyver is huge.
Look at Michael Keaton. Look at Michael Keaton. He used to be known as Mr. Mom. Now he's Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keaton, I wouldn't. But you're right about Richard Dean Anderson, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they even made reference to MacGyver in Stargate.
I love that. I had the MacGyver this thing about to start.
Yeah. And I always like things like that because, you know, it's giving a shout out to something that made him what he was.
And Amanda Tapping even said the elevator scene where she was whistling the theme song to Stargate. She said that she was trying to remember the theme song of MacGyver so she could whistle it, but she couldn't remember it exactly.
Well, that's another one a lot of people haven't seen is Sanctuary.
I saw the first couple episodes a year ago. I haven't never really finished it.
No? I really liked Sanctuary, and I was gutted that they just cut it where they did.
Yeah, I watched a fair bit of Sanctuary back when it was on Sci-Fi Channel, but I kind of lost interest in Sci-Fi Channel in general, and that kind of made me lose interest in Sanctuary.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch the end of it.
Has anybody seen the Lazarus Project?
No.
Oh my gosh. It is a very well done sci-fi show.
The thing about Sanctuary I liked was the European injection into it. You know, you had Jack the Ripper, you had Dracula, you had all the monsters, as well as all these weird and wonderful creatures that would have fitted to Stargate as well, I think. You know, they could have been these wonderful alien races in Stargate, except the CGI wasn't up to par by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Amanda Tapping, I remember watching the first Sanctuary and thinking, I know her.
Didn't she direct the pilot? Didn't she also direct the pilot episode of Sanctuary?
She directed some of Star SG-1.
Yeah.
I don't know about Sanctuary. I'd have to look that up.
I remember that she was saying in the interview, she always thought it was funny because when the writers wanted to give Richard Dean Anderson the science line, he's always said, "Give it to Amanda, give it to Amanda, give it to Amanda." That way he wouldn't have to memorize all the complex and scientifically termy words. Give it to Amanda, give it to Amanda.
That's why I didn't take to Enterprise, because not that he's not a good actor, but he will always be Sam Beckett to me. I was saying that last night.
Yeah.
Backstage. And that was a big problem for a lot of people with Enterprise.
Yeah, but I like it. I liked it when what's his name? Al was on the show.
Well, yeah, they did a shout out to it, which, that, as I said, that's always cool. But Star Trek is renowned for casting people that don't play sci-fi as the captains. Sci-fi people wouldn't know. And the fact went against that rule with Enterprise was
Okay.
casting him.
I looked it up. She directed 3 episodes of Sanctuary, according to Wikipedia, but they don't say which episodes.
Go to IMDb.
Well, she's quite a good director. I mean, she went on from SG1 directing to Sanctuary.
Wikipedia, dude. Go to IMDb, man.
And,
wait, Averick, are you hold on. Averick, are you complaining that someone in Star Trek was overacting?
No way. Come on, Spot was a great actor. Always got his marks. All 3 of them, I think. Gotta have a catchphrase Spot.
Yeah, I will agree with Arabic. Some of Stuart's quotes were right out of Shakespearean type. The way he portrayed them.
Okay. Amanda Tapping has directed 6 episodes of the show Motherland, Fort Salem.
Yes, I know that. Yes.
She directed 1 episode of Batwoman, 1 episode of The Flash.
I knew that.
She directed, and Yvette will like this, 4 episodes of Supernatural.
I know she did, yeah. Yeah. But Jensen's also directed a couple of episodes in Supernatural. You know, he's taken the step of doing it. So.
Let's see. She actually directed an episode of The Magicians. That's a show I want to get back into because I never saw how it ended. Again, same reason as Sanctuary.
Look at those Magicians.
And yeah, she's only actually directed 1 episode of SG1.
Oh, it was only 1. Oh, that's what it was more than that.
Only 1 episode and no other Stargate thing she's directed.
Well, that may change with Amazon. So, fingers crossed with that one.
Oh, as a reminder for everybody, there is no weekly wrap-up on Chris's channel today because of the 4th of July weekend.
Okay.
Well, considering the 4th of July is until tomorrow, I mean, didn't stop me from doing my stream. Yeah, lazy bastard.
Blame Chris.
109 live streams, and I've only missed 1.
I was late to this one because there was actually a line this morning at the pastry shop.
I was late because he's early. Yeah. And I knew.
Well, blame LDG. He's the one who wanted me to start at 8, so I started starting at 8.
Yeah, we'll have to change that if you want me on Jet Nerdy, though.
Well, I will be making some changes to that in the once I get the computer, and I'll explain later. But I'm not going to go into it right now.
Mm-hmm. That's your fault, darling.
That's what? It's my fault?
No.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's LDG's fault.
Hey, why the hell is Rooster
Always blame me.
Did you or did you not request this show to be earlier?
No, just the nerd chat, not the Jet Nerdy. I don't care when he starts Jet Nerdy.
Right.
Yeah, I just care about the extra hour for nerd chat. I think I care about. Yeah, I'm good on the negative 10,000 points on Jet Nerdy. Okay.
Well, it's Sunday. It's the Twilight Zone tonight. It's my favourite day of the week, so I do like watching my Twilight Zones.
So do I.
Yeah.
But.
And the fact I can't get on the server is really annoying.
Well, I'm going to have one more cigar before I end the stream. So probably that means I'm going to end it after 3 hours even.
Wow.
And just because me and Mrs. Vile watched it yesterday, has anyone got any opinions about the Chip and Dale's movie that came out recently on Disney?
Yes, I do.
It's a cartoon.
It's very well done. You got a lot of talk about classics from the 80s and the 90s. It's funny, but a mouse and a fly? What?
Well, then you said Chippendales. My mind went somewhere else, and not a cartoon.
No. He's talking about Rescue Rangers. The movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
Chippendales Rescue Rangers, not Chippendales the Dancer.
I did not go there, okay? We know where your mind is, girl.
Well, they were well famous.
Yeah,
Well, the only thing
Chippendale.
the thing that stood out the most to me about the Chippendales movie is it was very much, and it was a well appreciated spiritual sequel to Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, you got Roger. You got a Roger cameo in there.
And yeah, they did have a Roger Rabbit cameo and a couple of other jokes towards that. And I liked it. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I liked it a lot.
They got Paula Abdul and the cat. That was cool.
Ugly Sonic was actually important, and I thought it was funny.
Those two.
I won't be watching it. Just to put that out there.
Yvette, you might want to have 3 bottles of wine, then consider watching it. Then have another bottle of wine and say, fuck it, never mind.
I'm not going to like a cartoon anymore with alcohol down me. Trust me.
That's what I said. 3 bottles of wine, so you
Yvette,
consider
did
it.
you like
Another bottle
Who
of wine and
Framed
say, fuck it,
Roger
no
Rabbit?
cartoon.
It's okay. All right. For a mixed live action, because they'd never been done before like that. I mean, Bed Knobs and Broomsticks or whatever Disney shit.
It's a Lansbury classic.
You know, it's. I quit Disney when I saw Bambi. Okay, they ruined it for me.
Ruined it for me.
Yeah, so I quit Disney way before the rest of you. So, you know, and that wasn't the original Bambi. People are not that old. But when it came out on the cinemas again, because it was only on the cinemas back in my day.
Back in the day.
Yeah. But yeah, when Bambi came out, I think for the second time, got taken to it. And yeah, I didn't want to see a Disney movie ever again after that. I was quite clear with my opinions, even as a child, as you can imagine.
That makes you.
Oh, Arabic got my reference. He thought exactly the same as me.
Well,
Yeah,
ironically, they actually make that joke in the very beginning of the movie. They're like, when you hear the word, when you hear Chippendales, the first thing you think of is, and they're reference an 18th century cabinet maker, and they're like, oh, and the second thing you think of is these guys, and it's the Chippendales dancers. But the third thing you'll think of is the Rescue Rangers, and it was actually kind of funny.
Yeah, well, that would be funny. I like things like that.
I think you might enjoy this movie.
You know.
Give it a half a watch. If you don't like it, say you don't like it.
No, I'm not. I'm not going to waste my time on it, Elihu. A finite time I have, so I only watch what I want to watch. And as for new series coming out, I was surprised I liked The Boys, to be honest. But again, I didn't know Kripke was the showrunner, and when I found out, I was like, no wonder. I can see Supernatural in it, you know. Kripke's style.
Here comes Cameron to light you to bed is on my cue.
You know, what's funny about The Boys to me is it is literally one of the most woke shows I have ever seen, yet everyone seems to enjoy it and not complaining about how woke it is. And I don't understand that.
Well, woke?
I mean, it's like everyone who complains about everything that's wrong with woke culture is still loving The Boys, but it's like, yeah, this show is incredibly woke. They literally talk about only hiring certain people because of their sex, their gender, and they're doing it anyway. Both in universe and out of universe.
I think they're the ones that are doing it perfectly. That's the right way to do it.
But again, the things they complain about, that show is doing. Yeah, they're hanging a lampshade on it, but they're still doing it.
But like all the top characters are the people they're complaining about. So it's like they're doing it, but they're failing at doing it.
I don't know what you mean, Bird. Can you elaborate?
Well, I mean, for a show, okay, for one thing, for a woke show, they're generally against white males. Okay? But the biggest characters on the show are 3 white males and other males that aren't white, but there's males, straight men are generally the attacks of woke. Okay? And then there's the complete anti-woke would be women of color. Listen, I think there could be, but there's not a hell of a lot of them on the show. So I think they're failing at doing it. I think they're supposed to be woke. They think they're woke, but the joke is they're not woke. They're failing at their own game.
I was going to say, I mean, Jensen's character is not woke. I mean, he could not be more sexist, male, piggish if he tried.
That's exactly it. He's exactly what the right accuses the left of doing.
Yeah, but the other thing is they're also he's what the right doesn't do the things he does. So it's ridiculous that you look at him as the right.
It's the caricature of what the right says the left characterizes the right of doing.
But it's a character, exactly. It's not real. It's your wildest dream. It's what you wish the right really said.
No, it's what the right really is saying. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it is. That's what I'm saying. I really don't think it is.
It's the right is basically saying, hey, the left thinks that we're only this type of character, and that character is Soldier Boy. And then they're really showing that character on screen, and yet everyone is like, yeah, we like that character.
Yeah, because the people don't give a shit about woke. They like the character as is.
Because I don't think, I honestly say that the complaint isn't something as woke, it's the perception of it being woke. And I think the boys isn't perceived as being woke despite being incredibly woke. And it seemed to be okay with it. And I don't want to give them that free pass because they hang the lampshade directly over it every time.
I have to see more to make that judgment call, to be honest, Mike. Because I haven't seen the first 2 seasons, so in fairness to it, I won't say either way at the moment. But from what I've seen in series 3,
I'm going to give you I just wanted you to look out for something, Yvette.
Starlight in the Deep, season 1.
I wasn't going to go that far. I'm going to Mag and what her relationship status as it changes, and how the publicist tries to spin it.
Well, it's going to be a while before I get to him, but yeah, remind me.
It's like the quintessential example. I mean, it's literally what the right accuses the left of doing, and they're doing it on the show, both in universe and out of universe, and nobody cares.
But shouldn't that be the way? Nobody cares about it anyway. You know, that just goes to show how ridiculous it all is.
But I think the reason that they're getting away with it is because they're hanging that lampshade on it. Does anyone else know what that means? Does anyone know what the hanging of a lampshade means? That trope?
No.
It's when you go ahead.
Go ahead, LDG.
It's when you say you're doing something. You literally, like, you cancel out the fact that you're doing something because you say you're doing it.
when you hide
the
something
show.
obvious under a lampshade, and nobody notices that it's there.
It's like if a ship doesn't blow up, and then you mention, well, that should have blown up. That's putting a lampshade on the fact
like
that it
if
didn't blow
you're
up.
in a scene, and we're like, we don't want to sell LDG in this scene, and somebody puts a lampshade on your head, and then like nobody notices you're there because you have a lampshade on your head.
That's what
And
it's
it
from,
works.
yeah. But it's meant to be like pointing out something that is incredibly obvious or cliche.
Yes, there
and
we
then
go.
doing that cliche anyway.
Doing that thing.
Yeah. But The Boys is incredibly guilty of doing that. And as I said, for some reason, they've done it in such a way that no one seems to care.
Nope, it's entertaining.
And I'm not trying to point that out as a detriment to the show, because I am thoroughly enjoying The Boys. But I just think it's funny how it doesn't seem to piss everybody off the way it seems to in other shows and stuff.
You see, woke over here isn't political. We don't do the left and right thing you do, because we don't have a right. Our right is left still.
Yeah, your right is our left, and your left is what people in this country would call the enemy.
Yeah, and Rick's right. If I won't watch Prodigy or Lower Decks, then no way I'm going to watch Chippendale. He has a point.
Now, do you just have something against cartoons in general?
Yes.
Why?
I just don't like them. I never have. Even as a child, I didn't like them.
Oh, because I like cartoons if they can show a storyline that I can actually enjoy. And maybe it's because I grew up watching anime that had very adult themes and content, despite being quote unquote a kids show back in the 80s.
Quite possibly. I didn't know about anime, so maybe that would have changed my perception on it. I don't know. But we didn't have it over here, so.
I highly doubt it, but
yeah.
You're just freaked out about cartoons.
Yeah,
so.
well, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up with Transformers, G.I. Joe, Akira. As much as I don't like it, Sailor Moon, that kind of stuff is what I grew up with. So.
Out of all of those, we had the Transformers, I think. And we had the toys before the cartoon. So.
Yeah, I like Sailor Moon.
Well, the UK actually expanded a lot of Transformers lore because you guys were consuming it so fast that they actually had to make new comic books that were just printed in UK for it.
There you go.
And some of the toys were only released in the UK that weren't really released here, so you guys got some stuff that we didn't get, and I hate you guys for it.
Okay. But if you speak to me nicely and tell me which ones you're missing, I'll just get them for you.
I'll send you a list then. You can go back to the 80s and early 90s and pick them up for me. I'd appreciate it. Well, anything you guys else want to talk about real quick before I end the stream?
No, I just wanted to bob on, cause trouble, and go.
Nah.
No, I'm good.
I have one last
backstage.
Go on, Bert.
So apparently what you consider a moped and what I consider a moped are different things.
Yes.
I put a link in the private chat.
Oh yeah, no, I know the differences between the mopeds in the US and here. They
what
are
I was talking
very
about.
different. Yeah.
And they said that's basically not legal anywhere in New York City. And that's simply a bicycle with an engine that you can switch between using as a bike or motorized engine.
Yeah. That's how they started out.
That's what a moped is. It's supposed to. It originally had a
Okay.
gasoline engine, but it was one that you could pedal or have use the engine.
Well,
That's what moped means. It means motor/pedal.
Okay, well, according to the site I found, it is in fact still illegal. Well, I'm just saying. I understand.
A petrol one would be here, but the electric ones are freely available.
Oh, electric. I don't know if it's electric. This would have been.
No, that would have been diesel. Originally, it would have been a diesel-powered one.
Okay, no, this would have been before electric would have been available.
Mm.
I'm talking.
Yes. Yeah. No.
15 years ago.
I agree.
Yeah, gas-powered bike with pedals. You can switch back and forth. Yeah, those are
a gas-powered bike, which tells me it's gasoline powered.
Yeah.
Or petrol. Yeah.
When I was a kid, that's what I had. I had a gasoline moped, but I could never actually afford gasoline to put it into, so I almost always pedaled.
Okay, well, what I'm saying is a gasoline moped, I believe, is still technically not legal in New York City.
You don't need it.
Well,
electric now.
They need to change their DMV policy, because I was on the New York DMV.
I know what it says there, but like I said, what it says there doesn't necessarily mean that you can actually get a moped. Actually, I'm so sorry. Registered. It might say you can, but actually registering it is like, I mean, there's a form to get a gun registered, but then when you actually go to get it, there used to be issues, and now there's going to be issues again because they don't care about breaking the law to put in restrictions. So if you don't have to believe me, but I attached a link from
I can check it out after. I'm not going to click any links while I'm streaming right now.
No, I wouldn't either. I just so you know, I'm not crazy.
No.
Only a crazy person says I'm not crazy.
That's not true.
Yeah, I think you're crazy.
I think a majority of the people on this stream are crazy in one way or another.
According to the psychiatrists and mental institutions that I escaped from, yeah.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Valid point.
All right, then in that case, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Bird, you want to plug your stream?
I'm a crazy person having a stream today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, a half hour. Twilight Zone. Season 4 and 5, episode 17. Please hang out. Check us out. Thank you.
I would actually come myself, but I can't get on your server.
It's youtube.com/BirdoPray5.
Yeah, I think she's talking about the server where you're watching it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's from there you can get the links to the other places. Everyone except Yvette, for some reason, can't get there.
Well, no, LGG puts it on the backstage so I don't miss it.
Yes.
All right.
If you need an alternate site to look at it, come and LDG will guide you to his backstage.
I have no
Elihu, when are you going to do your next What's Up with the Universe?
I am thinking about putting a show together on Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific time. Going to be talking about exoplanets.
Why don't you tell us why that rocket hit the moon?
No country or private organization has claimed that yet, but people are speculating it's either a Chinese satellite or a private entrepreneur, but not naming who.
Wait, so someone launched a rocket and accidentally hit the moon? Are you serious?
Because it created a double crater.
it was a partial stage of another rocket that hit orbit and then the orbit just ended up hitting the moon.
Yeah, because they know it wasn't a crater.
NASA
created a double crater.
I can't imagine it being a satellite because the moon's too far out. And
Yeah,
even
it's
a satellite, of course, wouldn't make that.
Yeah, it was not a satellite because the Lunar One would have detected it.
There's a lot of space junk up there.
Yeah, that's why
there is.
Lunar One is always changing its orbit because it can detect debris or another object. If it was a satellite, they would detect it and said, okay, that's a satellite, or that's debris, or that's a rock. They're not going to keep it in its orbit, and it has a chance to actually maneuver a little bit.
So, aliens?
I still say it was Musk. Remember on SNL, he said to the moon. So I still blame Elon Musk.
You heard it here.
I have no issues blaming crap on Elon Musk. He's a dumbass. So
He's a nut job, for sure. He's definitely a nut job. Every time he releases something new, we have a good giggle reading about it.
Hey, this guy.
And then he does it anyway. So
yeah.
I just got YouTube notification. Vertebrate 5 is going live in 30 minutes. Twilight Zone. Season 4 and 5, episode 17, 1963.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I still haven't got the notification that I went live yet. But all right, it's been 3 hours. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thanks to everyone who joined and everyone in the chat. And next week, I should have my new laptop set up. So, yay.
What Jeff Nerdy will we play next week?
All right. Later, folks.
Later, weirdos.